Time having arrived, I call this regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council Finance Committee to order. Will you all please join in standing with the flag? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilors, before we get into the items on the agenda, I would ask that we all take a moment of silence for the passage of a resident in my ward, Mr. Steve Foote. Steve and I contested a couple of times, but he was a strongly active resident in this city who, served the city for quite a while, and wherever he had a disagreement, you knew it was in the best interest of the city. So I'd ask that we take a moment of silence. Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Item 1, we have the acceptance of the minutes of the December 1st, 2025 Finance Committee meeting.
Accepted and placed on file.
We have the appointment of Sylvester P. Forts of 20 Hope Street, Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Advisory Council on Health for a 3-year term ending in February 2029. Postponed from Finance Committee meeting March 16th, 2026. Postponed from Finance Committee meeting April 6th, 2026. Invited Sylvester Forts. And councilors, as you will recall, we had not been able to get in touch with Mr. Forts. We found out why. He is out of the country until the end of the month, and we'll be back for the next meeting if you so desire.
I was going to say he looked a lot like the mayor.
Yeah, he does. We kind of, how it is, But Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I was just going to ask you to postpone this to the last FinCom in May.
So moved.
Second. Motion is properly made and seconded to postpone this item to the last FinCom in May. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Item 3, we have the appointment of Maria Fernandez of 21 Bauer Ave, Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Advisory Council on Health for a 3-year term ending in March 2029. Postponed from the Finance Committee meeting of April 6, 2026. Invited Maria Fernandez. And coincidentally, the reason we could not get in touch with her, she is also out of the country till the end of the month. Not together, but she's also out of the country. We did get information to that.
Council, is there a motion?
A motion to postpone this matter to the last Finance Committee meeting of May.
Councilors, motion has been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The matter is postponed.
Item 3, we have the appointment of Jorge Vega to the position of Chief Information Officer. Invited Jorge Vega.
Good evening, Mr. Vega. Good evening. Anything you'd like to say to the council to start off?
Sure. Well, thank you, Mr. President, and members of the council, and Mayor Rodriguez for the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm honored to be considered for the role of Chief Information Officer for the City of Brockton. As someone who calls Brockton home, this opportunity is both professional and deeply personal to me. And my professional background has centered on using technology to support operations, solve problems, and help people do their work more effectively. I've led in environments where reliability, responsiveness, budgeting, cybersecurity, vendor management, and day-to-day service all matter. If confirmed, my immediate focus would be straightforward: support continuity of city services, listen and learn from departments and staff, understand the current environment, and identify practical opportunities to strengthen service, accountability, and long-term planning. I understand public trust must be earned through performance, and I'd welcome the opportunity to do that here. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Thank you, Mr. Vega. Councilors?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion has been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Congratulations, Mr. Vega.
Item 5, we have the appointment of Ron Gonzalez of 7 Vermont Ave, Brockton, Mass. to the Commission on Human Rights for a 3-year term ending in April 2029. Invited Ron Gonzalez.
Good evening, Mr. Gonzalez.
Good evening.
Anything you'd like to say to the council?
I'm just thankful for the mayor for recommending me and for you nice people to oversee it.
Thank you.
To recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion has been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Item 6, we have the appointment of Janice Johnson Plumer of Peterson Ave, Brockton, Mass. to the Board of the Pilgrim Foundation for a one-year term ending in March 2027. Invited Janice Johnson Plumer.
Councilor Castro.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to make a motion to table this appointment this evening. We have since learned that Pilgrim Foundation is a private foundation, and therefore council approval is not needed for this appointment. By the way, she's already started doing things, and they're very excited to have her on their foundation.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion's been properly made and seconded to table. All in favor of tabling? All opposed? Motion is tabled.
Thank you.
Matters tabled.
Item 7, we have the reappointment of Joe Miranda of 19 Wallace Street, Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Community Access Advisory Board for a 3-year term ending in April 2029. Invited Joe Miranda.
Good evening, Detective.
Mr. Chairman,
Good afternoon.
I'd like to move that we take 7 through 11 collectively so that if there are questions, they all have an opportunity to respond. They're all being reappointed to the Cable Advisory Board unless there's objection.
Second?
Councilors, motion's been properly made and seconded to take these items collectively. Is that on the motion, Councilor?
I'm in favor.
Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. We'll take the matters collectively.
Item 8, we have the reappointment of Manuel Centeo of 29 Kenneth Ave, Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Community Access Advisory Board for a 3-year term ending in April 2029. Invited Manuel Centeo. Reappointment of Laura Beekler of 37 Fern Ave, Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Community Access Advisory Board for a 3-year term ending in April 2029. Invited Laura Beekler. Reappointment of Larry D. Young of 1111 North Main Street, Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Community Access Advisory Board for a 3-year term ending in April 2029. Invited Larry D. Young. We have the reappointment of Brian Madden of 16 Ellis Street, Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Community Access Advisory Board for a 3-year term ending in April 2029. Invited Brian Madden. And councilors, I do have an email from,
Mr. Madden?
no, not Mr. Madden, from Mr. Centeo. He has another meeting tonight, so he could not be here.
He's here.
Oh, he is
Oh,
here.
Mr. Santeo's right
I
there.
guess you got out earlier than I thought.
Two places at once.
Well,
Is there anything any of you would like to say on the appointment?
Pretty much, thank you, councilors and Mr. Mayor Rodriguez for the recommendation. All of us have been on the board for several years, and we wish to continue to participate and provide to our cities as we have been done in the past. For myself, I've been on the board for at least 12 years now.
Councilor Farwell?
Thank you. This is a general question to whomever would like to answer. We've had a lot of missteps with BCA, as you know. Is it true we have a new executive director?
Yes.
Okay, and what do any of you see as the priorities going forward? Because a lot of our residents do heavily depend upon Brockton Community Access for news and information and to understand what's happening in government, as well as the other programming which you offer, which I think is exceptional in a diverse city. So anyone have priorities that you've set, the board has set?
So the board, like you guys all are aware, hired Benjamin recently. He's in transition to go full-time because he's leaving his current employer. So by, I think, the beginning of May, he'll be here full-time. He lives in the city. He loves the city. That was one of the reasons why we hired him. He has a lot of vision for BCA and is hoping to make a lot of changes to fit with our model and mission of the organization. We realized some of the mistakes that BCA made in the past, especially I know you guys are probably going to ask in regards to the election coverage. There was an issue, a technical issue during that night. Since then, we figured what it was, and it's been resolved. We hope it doesn't happen again. And BCA is constantly providing a lot more service than we should be providing. Some of the things that I mentioned here several years ago when you guys asked me to come up, for example, is when BCA provides stuff on YouTube or provides stuff on our website, because technically that's not the function of BCA. And a lot of people forget that and always are demanding. So we kindly have to reassure people what the function of BCA really is to provide the cable access television to the people who subscribe to the channels.
And so sometimes when our website or the YouTube channels are not up, and people are, that's one of the areas we get a lot of concerns and complaints about. And then that's what we have to remind people of the function of BCA, who we cater to is the cable subscribers, who fund BCA.
All right, with respect to updating public service announcements and whatever you broadcast, nothing negative towards the former mayor, but I always see Mayor Sullivan pop up with something about, I think it's fire protection, which admittedly is important, but do you have an in-house program to constantly monitor and upgrade what we're sending out to residents? And maybe you could indicate to me, what is your current staffing level? Because a lot of people have left, and frankly, I have no idea how many people you have working there now or their different assignments. So I wouldn't know who to call, for example, for a particular issue.
Well, we have 6 full-timers? Yeah. So we do have, we do have a couple of full-time employees. The people who have left, their position has been filled. There's only one current vacant position, which is Mike Simmons that left. But the emails goes to everybody when you email it, so anybody in the building will be able to see it.
I can just add a little bit of transparency for you on what the BCA transition has been. I came onto the board 4 years ago. Through that, we had a new executive director, as I've been here with him before. Scott Mercer has departed. Through this transition, yes, we have gone under a little bit of a redesign and stabilization within the organization. This is something that takes a bit of time to put together. What we're looking for is longevity and consistency for everyone in the city of Brockton to be able to have the media coverage that they're looking for through BCA. We understand that this has been something of a bit of a challenge, and we have noted that, and we do plan on moving forward in a positive way with bringing on somebody that lives in the city, was born here, and has a true passion for Brockton is a key part to the executive director position. So for us, when we were looking for an executive director that could fill that role, along with that came making sure that the transition for our current staff felt that they were heard, that they were respected. And so we have been actually working very hard to do that with our current staff that we have. We do have some openings that we will be also hiring for. But with budget constraints, we're aware that sometimes we can't always fill every need that's asked. But I do look forward to consistency in our messaging and improvement on many other levels when it comes to what we do and serve for the city. And I know Joe and I work very carefully together along with the new executive director as we onboard him. But if there's any communications moving forward that you'd like to have consistently, we are open to that, and we are definitely going to be able to provide that to you.
Right. Well, and I don't know if other councilors have received complaints, but the complaints I get is that they did form a union, but it's very hard to get bargaining sessions with the directors. What is the status of bargaining? And in 2024, you had an unfair labor practice before the National Labor Relations Board. Has that been resolved?
Yes, so that has completely been resolved, and BCA was found not to be held liable. In addition to that, I spend approximately 8 hours a week working on union work. I've represented BCA in the capacity of the board in that purpose, as well also with a lot of human resource needs that are for the nonprofit. I would say to you that we just came from a negotiation. We consistently meet we meet twice a month for a couple hours each time, and we are almost at the end of ratifying the agreement. This will be our first agreement. And I would like to just point out that with a volunteer board, when something like this unionizes, it does put stressors on, but Joe and I have been extremely dedicated, along with my colleagues here, on making sure we meet the needs of the organization to the best of our ability, and we do look forward to moving forward with a ratified agreement that is good for the city, good for BCA, and as well for our employees, because we've been trying to get to this point for a very, very long time. So I hope that that is something that is soon closed.
All right, well, my last question is something that I have wanted to see for about 10 years, and that's a copy of the budget. I mean, you received $650,000. I do not believe you have a $650,000 payroll, but you obviously apportion money for equipment upgrade, for operational costs. Between now and when we have our budget hearings, would it be possible to get a copy of the last 2 years, this year's budget and the year prior, so that we could compare and see actually where is the funding going, how is it being used, how is it being allocated?
Our treasurer's over there shaking his head, so he's gonna get that done later tonight or tomorrow.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors? Counselor Green.
Just for clarification, I believe you mentioned earlier that broadcasting or streaming any kind of media coverage on YouTube is out of scope for BCA. Am I correct in that?
Correct. So BCA is to operate the 3 channels: the education, the government, and the public access. Anything that we do, the BCA does, is like the icing on the cake. It's just BCA performing extra. And so the people in the community have been receiving this type of service for so long, they automatically assume that's part of BCA's function. So we're trying to explain to people that we want the people that's watching the channels to watch it on the 3 channels. Because think about it, if they're cutting their cable because they could see it on the internet, BCA is losing funding. The city, BCA, everybody. We want people to continue to use the cable, Comcast, to watch this government meeting.
So do you know how the YouTube portion started to begin with, if it's outside of scope?
It was just BCA doing extra because there's for example, we want to like everybody here, if you have a show, you want everybody to see it. You want the people that have cable to see it. You want the people that's in a different city. People that move from Brockton to Florida, for example, they want to see what's going on in Brockton, but they can't watch it on their local access, so they want to watch it on YouTube. So that's a service that was provided just to kind of keep, our information. Everybody in the world could see it if they go on YouTube or they go on our website.
And are there plans to cut that
No.
service? No?
Our plan is continue doing, even though the extra work that we're doing, but a lot of times the counselors are receiving complaints that certain things are not reaching their Facebook, they're not reaching the YouTube channel, or not reaching the website. I just want you guys to keep in mind when a constituent is reaching out to you guys with those complaints, that you guys can reassure them, did you watch it on channel 9, for example, channel 12 or 98, or the HD channels? Because normally it's on those channels, just didn't reach the internet. And majority of the complaints that we get in the phone calls are people complaining about the online services.
Is there a marketing or promotion component to the BCA or to the advisory board? So specifically, are there any plans for increasing viewership using different platforms or whatever platform is within scope?
To target the people outside of the cable subscribers, are you saying?
Just to increase your viewership in general or subscribers?
So, for example, now if you're talking about the local access, right? Let's say some members here have a show, right? It all depends on each of the producers of that show to go ahead and advertise their shows and how to get more people to watch it. Does that answer?
I think so. Yes. So the onus is on the producers, not on the organization per se,
Yes.
right?
If you're watching a show on Fox News, for example, it's up to that Fox News show to promote and get people to watch it. Same thing with the local access. Normally, it's whoever's producing it, they'll tell their friends, or their Facebook post or whatever, all the other ways that they advertise their show so people get people to watch it.
Okay, all righty. Is there a line item in your budget for marketing or for advertisement?
No.
No? All righty. Thank you.
You all set, Counselor?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselors, is there a motion?
Motion to recommend all of them favorably.
Counselor Tavares.
Hello, thank you so much. Actually, I can say the BCA
what I think it does such a great work. Actually, I've been multiple times. We provide a lot of information, and I hear a lot of great feedback, you know. And my question here is, what is your vision for serving, like, what's your vision to serve in the community right now? What's your vision?
Me, to be honest, as the president of BCA, I have high standards for the organization. Whatever we're doing, I want to triple it. I always want to do more. We have 6. I want to get our staff to 12. I want to be able to do everything. I want BCA to cover every school event, every city hall event. Whenever the mayor's doing a ribbon cutting, I want BCA's camera to be there. We want to do more. Unfortunately, we can't, because the money that we have, we only receive $675. You guys will receive how we spend it, the budget, and where the money are going. You'll see the 6 staff, and we have an old building that constantly needs repair. We are spending that money, and you guys will see where the money is being spent. But again, we wish we could do a lot more. We wish anybody that's watching this show at home today want to come and volunteer for BCA, put a show on. We have staff member that trains. You get free equipment to take home and play with and record, and we train you how to put a show on. We constantly are advertising. If a show doesn't produce for so many months, we'll find somebody else. We have, again, the classes is free. We work with the high school, we work with Massasoit. We're open to any other colleges in the area, Bridgewater State, Stonehill, anybody. We open the dialogue. BCA is there, is open for the community. We even went ahead and opened on the weekends. We're doing it.
Yeah, basically that was my question. Like, for example, if you get the money, what is your long-term goal? You already answered that question. And then I hope you do get it, because with our money, then we can provide a better service. We need the money to provide a service with the quality. And I hope we all can help. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jack.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Nicastro?
Thank you. Good evening to all of you. Thank you for being here. I just want to say that you perform such a valuable service, both in volunteering on this board and in the offerings of Brockton Community Access. And that word access sticks with me. And so it's just so important that you put the programs on YouTube. I don't like my high school friends seeing me on YouTube on shows that I've performed on BCA, but it's a necessary public service. I know of all kinds of people all over who look at our meetings after they take place because of YouTube. Along the lines of watching you on the cable access channels, is there a schedule? Do I know when you're showing what? Okay, on the different channels, and how do I access that schedule, because I'm totally ignorant of it. Well,
Great. I thank you for that input. I think that
Lara.
one of the things when we talk about direction over the next 3 years with our appointments, I'm hearing from everyone strategy and how we look to move forward. And I will say that we can try to be more transparent with you all and make sure that that is more available to you, easier access to that information, scheduling. Thank you for your feedback, and there's one thing I can assure you that we'll respond to that feedback in an appropriate time.
On bcatv.org, the schedule is up on it.
It is.
.org?
Yep, bcatv.org.
bcatv.org. Now, I didn't know that. Thank you.
And
And
if
that's
there's-
for each channel?
Yep.
Okay. And also the channel numbers?
Yep,
Okay.
that's also on the website.
Okay. And finally, I'm very grateful to all of you for your willingness to provide your spending and your budget to us, certainly before our next vote on this next week. Because, of course you would like to get more money from us. I understand that, and I read that between the lines. But show us how you're spending it now. And tell us about what your needs or your dreams are. And, we'll be as responsive as we can, but we need to know. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Azak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, and thank you all for your dedication and service to BCA. So if I'm understanding correctly, what you're trying to tell us is that What you're trying to tell us, first, thank you if you didn't hear that. Thank you for your service on the board. What you're trying to tell us is that you want people to continue to Comcast, to keep Comcast, even though we're offering these services on YouTube and Facebook and wherever. It wouldn't be the case if people didn't pay to have Comcast at home. So, so I just want to make sure that that's what, you know, it's great that you do all of that, but this is funded through Comcast, through the people who pay to have Comcast. And I am one of them, and BCA is always on in my kitchen. And just to answer my colleague, if you watch the shows, after each show, there is a menu that says, that will tell what shows are on what time, so you can follow that way. There are times it'll say like city council meeting, school committee, it'll give the times next to them. So thank you, and Mayor, I didn't know, did you want to say something?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to add that we're in the process of having conversations with Verizon as well. And Verizon will also contract with the city. What Joe was trying to say is that we get 5% of the subscribers' revenue as a city. So the more subscribers we have, the bigger that pot gets. So if we keep on deferring these services to other platforms, that subscriber rate or the subscriber numbers keep getting smaller and smaller, and the smaller it gets, the less money we have both for the city and for BCA. So that's why it's important that we got to come up. Yes, it's great that people want to watch us on YouTube. Not that I want them to watch me on YouTube, but to make sure that that we continue to focus our attention to cable TV, because cable TV brings revenue both into the city and into BCA. Because if we continue at this pace, in the sense, it's going to get to a point where the city itself is not going to get enough of the revenue. Never mind what goes into BCA, because they get a percentage of what the city gets. You know, we get a lump sum and they get up to 75% of that lump sum. But if their lump sum keeps getting smaller and smaller, then they're going to get smaller numbers, and the city itself will get smaller numbers that we can utilize for all kinds of services in here. But in the meantime, we're actually in discussions with Verizon to provide cable TV as well to residents of the city, thus giving us an opportunity to build that number back up again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for re-explaining that. And I'm happy to hear about Verizon, because up until this point, really, Comcast had the monopoly and they were the only ones that were able. So that'll be great, and probably get better rates for our residents. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor DeRosa, followed by Counselor Charnel.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor answered my question, so thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Counselor Charnel.
So just in regards to the percentage, do we get a percentage of the internet subscribers or just TV?
Just cable.
Just cable. So is that a negotiating thing? If we negotiated at the mayor's shaking his head no. Just TV. So again, maybe because there is competition now, maybe they would give her some of their internet. So I'm just, probably not, but just making that, yeah. I'm all set, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor.
The law actually only covers cable TV. It doesn't cover anything else, not internet, not any other, the other platform. It's just the TV itself.
Thank you, Mayor.
Counselors, I've got nobody else on my list. Could I get a motion?
Motion.
To recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded to recommend favorably back to the full city council. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 12, whereas the city encountered issues with internal financial controls resulting in audits by outside organizations, and whereas the recent report of the Office of the Inspector General relating to the school department deficit and the continued review of city finances by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue reinforce the need for stronger internal controls, therefore be it ordered by the City Council of the City of Brockton to adopt a home rule petition to amend Chapter 324 of the Acts of 1990 accordingly.
Councilor Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to postpone this to the first FinCom meeting in May. I also like to have the superintendent of schools added to the list of invitees to this resolve.
All right, motion's been properly made and seconded. Councilors, all in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. The matter is postponed. Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take agenda item number 21 and bring it forward.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Would you want to? Mr. Mayor has asked about taking item 7.
Mr. Mayor, you need to sit.
Mr. Mayor, you're not, no, you left the body.
Well, then I withdraw my motion and,
Do you want to just proceed with the regular
No, if you could just do 17 for me, because I have to step out, because I have to present on 17, and then you can go to whatever you want.
It's the will of the council.
sure, I'll make a motion to take agenda item number 17 out of order and hear it at this time.
Second.
Councilors, motion's been properly made and seconded to take item 17 out of order. All in favor? All opposed? Mr. Clerk.
Item 17, order that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $175,000 from the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism to the Mayor's Office. Invited Mayor Moises Rodriguez and/or designee, Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to speak on this?
Yeah, I do, and apologies for trying to get up there. It's a bad habit, you know? What are you going to do? Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, and colleagues in the council, we applied for a grant to be able to put on some watch parties for the World Cup here in the community, and we were awarded from the MOT, from the Mont, $175,000 to go towards the 3 events that we're going to hold here in the city. We're going to do something for the Haitian game, for the Cape Verdean game, and for the U.S. game, with dates to follow once we get that all established and the way it's supposed to. There's also a match on this, and we are currently working with some of the other funders that exist out there, like Mass 250 and a couple of the other private groups that we have that will match up that 175 for us.
Councilors?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full City Council.
Second.
Just quick.
Councilor Nacastro.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening, man.
On the match, it says that, hang on. As this is a matching grant program, matching funds equal or greater than the grant award are required. If you're not able to raise funds equal from others, equal to the amount of the grant, where will you obtain the funding from?
Well, I'm confident that we will, because they count in-kind matching as matching as well. So with all the volunteers that we have, with all the people that are behind this, with the various organizations, bring in their volunteers, we will more than match what the requirement of the grant is.
Okay. It doesn't mention in kind, but I believe you. I just wondered, do you have a plan B in case it is not all raised?
Well, we had several meetings with folks like the Eastern Bank Foundation that are on board, and also Mass 250 that's on board to help us put this together, because when you consider this event, there's going to be one done in Boston, nothing on the South Shore. So this is going to be the South Shore event for all the South Shore communities, with communities as far away as Framingham. So this is bound to be a pretty good activity for us here in the city. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to want to promote the city, and also for businesses to promote themselves with this.
Yes, I see great opportunity. Mayor Wu announced this week that at the watch parties held in Boston, they will not be charging admission. Where do you plan to hold your parties, and are you planning to charge admission?
Well, Councilor, our event is going to be around the Rock Stadium and the high school as well. You know, utilizing the parking areas, the fields around the high school, with both the high school teams and the Brockton Youth Soccer and a variety of other things. That's what we intend to hold this event, and then the watch itself will be inside of the stadium.
Okay, and what about admission fee?
I think we're basically looking at it and see, because the thought was for us to charge a minimal, because we're going to have to ticket the event. We don't have, the stadium is not, large enough to accommodate more than 5,000 to 6,000 to 7,000 people, so we're going to have to limit that. So with the limitation of that, if we just make it so that it's free for all, people will probably gobble up these tickets and not really show up, and then we'll have an empty place. So we thought about putting a minimal, maybe something like $5 per person that actually is going to watch the event within the stadium itself, and then utilize those funds to go back and to help the kids in the schools and pay for whatever expenses we have associated with this.
Okay. It's a great opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor.
And we haven't announced anything because I figure we have to go through the council first. I didn't want to be reprimanded again by the council president for not following the proper procedure. So that's why we didn't, we've got the plans in place, but we haven't announced anything until this actually goes through the council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Counselor Thompson? No? Okay.
No, my question was answered. Thank you.
Okay. Counselors, do we have a motion?
Motion was made and seconded.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
And thank you for taking this out of order. Thank you for taking this out of order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Counselor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion to take agenda item number 21 out of order and hear it now.
Is there a second, Counselors?
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor to take item 21 out of order. All opposed? The motion passes.
Item 21, resolved. Be it resolved by the Brockton City Council to invite Kevin Sullivan of Left Field Project Management to appear before the Finance Committee to discuss and provide an update on the current status of the Brockton High School renovation project. Invited, Kevin Sullivan.
Good evening, Mr. Sullivan. Good evening, Principal McCaskill.
And Council President, Councilors, thank you for having us. We want to provide a brief update and certainly get to your questions. So again, my name is Kevin Sullivan. I'm serving as the project manager for the Brockton High School project. I'm joined by Principal McCaskill, who I'm sure you all know, Craig Olson from our architecture firm, KBA, and Paul Dominoff, as well as Superintendent Tahiliani. So even though there's just a few of us up here tonight, I think it's important. I'm not sure if you all can see the PowerPoint.
Ready
I
to
think
start
you can. Say that again?
You're starting your PowerPoint?
Yes.
You can let BCA in the booth, could you bring up the PowerPoint presentation? We're all set now, except for
excellent.
I think you're on page 3.
Yes, we are. Thank you. So this is just a quick look at some of the stakeholders within the city. We've tried really hard over the past 14 to 18 months to connect with as many as we can. The school building committee is comprised of what I would describe as a really well-rounded body of some city council representation, school representation, industry community leaders, and really that is the group that we meet with monthly. So I would encourage all of you, to come to our meetings. Our public meetings are on Zoom. So of course you can reach out to us at any point if you have questions on the project, but we've been holding those meetings for the past 14 months as we try to move this feasibility study for the high school project forward. So as most of you may be aware, the city of Brockton has an opportunity. They're currently partnering with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. I'll refer to them as the MSBA moving forward. And a frequent question we get is, what is the MSBA and where does their money come from? So in a very simple way, the MSBA is a quasi-public agency that partners with cities and towns in the Commonwealth to help pay for new buildings, renovations, sometimes repairs. And they're funded from you and I. The state of Massachusetts has a 6.25% sales tax. So every time you buy a pack of gum or a cheeseburger or a car, money comes out of that and it goes into a larger fund. The MSBA does a little over $1 billion a year in school construction. So, and again, in a very simple way, we've all been paying for it for at least the past 20 years. And I think the reason that's important, you can see right here, it's really just a general snapshot of the South Shore with Brockton in the middle. Outlined, outlined in your surrounding or your neighboring towns are are your neighbors who have already received funding from the MSBA that, again, has come from both you and I over the past 20 or so years to build mostly new high schools. So again, I think it's just context, but it's important to know that you all have been paying into this, and your surrounding communities have benefited greatly during that time by the way of mostly new high schools. So big picture, where are we in the process? I think Left Field came in front of this group last January. The architect was brought on last spring, and we continue to work through the MSBA's process, which is, as you can see, incredibly comprehensive, lengthy. We've done a lot of work. We've been at this for a year and a half, and we're still very much in the early phases of this process, where, as you can see, we're in the feasibility study phase, where we're nearing the end, and the goal is to submit to the MSBA at the end of April, our preferred schematic. And when I get to the next slide, you'll have a little more detail related to that. But this is just really for context to see, where we are in the process and how much work is ahead of us. So a little more specific, in January, we submitted our preliminary design programming to the MSBA. That really is just, that's a culmination of the work that we've been doing with school staff, the architecture team, and it outlines educational goals for the city of Brockton, Brockton Public Schools. It studies the existing conditions, and it really sets up parameters for, what can we do? How do we determine what is the most cost-effective, educationally appropriate solution for the city of Brockton now and for the next 50 years? That really outlined, I'd say, 8 or 9 different options on how we could achieve that goal. As we move forward, that continues to get refined, and during the preferred schematic report, we take a number of options, and we refine it to figure out what is the best option. Again, most cost-effective, educationally appropriate solution for the city of Brockton. That is what we're going to be, voting on next week at the school building committee and submitting to the MSBA. Once we submit that to the MSBA, the goal is to receive board approval in June, and we would then move into the schematic design phase. There's a lot of work that goes into that, and we would be working on that all the way through October, given our current schedule. We'd submit to the MSBA in October with the goal of receiving a December schematic design project funding agreement board approval from the MSBA. I know there's a lot of acronyms, and I'm happy to answer them, but just trying to get through this. And typically, after you receive that board approval from the MSBA, a district will have 120 days to go out and secure their local funding. So that's where we are right now, and I certainly look forward to some questions related to that. Also important to mention, although the MSBA is a significant partner, and in this case, hundreds of millions of dollars are on the table here, they do have specific caps related to typical construction things you would see within your budget. So they don't pay for everything, and they have scope items that they don't pay for either. One example would be MSBA does not pay for new or renovated schools. I just put that out there because at some point we're going to be reviewing a budget and talking about how much the state's going to be giving or contributing to the city of Brockton in this project. And it's important to know they help out a lot, but they don't pay for everything. And with that, I'm going to just call up Craig real quick to talk about some additional.
Thank you. Craig Olson with Castle Booz Associates, KBA. I'm an architect and an educational planner. I've been doing schools for over 20 years, and I will say working in Brockton has been a privilege over the past year. You have some great people, including the man sitting to my left, and as well as working with the community in public forums, community forums, working with the city council, various city councilors in their wards, making sure that we're hearing everything. The module 3, as Kevin is comprised of the PDP, using acronyms, and the PSR, and that is really, as you mentioned, about finding the most fiscally responsible and educationally appropriate long-term solution. So it's a balance of a quantitative approach and a qualitative being the actual cost, and then qualitative being the educational aspect of it. Through this, as you can see on the slide that's in front of you, it's about evaluating the existing conditions. There have been thousands and thousands of hours that have been put together doing analysis of your existing site, your existing building, all the building systems, hazardous materials, to make sure and understand these things, soils, any traffic impacts, and to really understand and develop a baseline of where you are currently so we know where we're going to go with it. And so that was what was done as part of the PDP submission that Kevin had mentioned. And now we're going with the PSR, which is really the development and evaluation of the multiple options. Through that process, as we talk about the qualitative, is we've conducted educational visioning, which an educational program, which Principal McCaskill will be talking about a little bit, as well as developing of space summaries, which is the summary of all different types of spaces, aligning with the MSBA guidelines and national standards for educational spaces, evaluating the sites, and then evaluating a myriad of options from what it would cost just to repair the building, what it would cost to do an additional renovation, or even new construction. And ultimately, we're getting cost estimates next week, as Kevin mentioned, and so we'd be able to update the city council in future meetings. That tonight we don't have those numbers available, just as the timing of our schedule, but we look forward to presenting that to the city, to the community, and all the public, and to understand what is the best solution through the multiple evaluation getting there. We're going to just touch quickly on the current high school. And it's important why we do this is you look at the pictures here. These were pictures of the year the school opened. It looks very much the same today. And there's two parts to that that's important to say is, as even Principal Castle talked about during our educational visioning, is decisions were made back in the 60s when the current building was built that changed and affected the trajectory of Brockton for the years to today. So for over 50 years. And so as we start to think about that, the decisions that we talk about today are going to affect the trajectory of Brockton for the next 50 years. And so that we can't take that lightly. And that speaks to the power of the decisions that were made to the 4 houses as an example, which we're looking to maintain as part of the project as well. And the quality of the building and the quality of that, but education has changed. The world around us has changed, and the building hasn't. And so as we look at how, just even in our professional world, in our day-to-day lives, even as we're talking about cable access tonight, for instance, there's the cable, but then there's streaming like YouTube TV. That's how much our world has changed. Education has changed with that as we're trying to prepare the youth for that. But as you can see, the building really hasn't changed much. There's been minor renovations to it as far as windows and roofs, but really it is still the same building that was built back in the late 60s. And so I'm going to turn it over to Principal McCaskill to talk a little bit.
All right. Thank you, Craig. Good evening, everyone. And it's interesting that Craig talks about a building that hasn't changed since 1970. How many of you folks graduated from Brockton High School?
I was a freshman the day that opened.
Oh. And Mr. Cruz, it probably looks the same as that room in red or azure or yellow or green that you graduated from. And as Craig indicated, the world has changed. The way we prepare students has changed. It's no longer just handing someone a diploma and having them go on their way. Other schools, even the schools that surround us, our regional VOTECs, they've evolved. And here's a classic opportunity for us to evolve as well. And so when we started this process, and it was, and I can truly say, one of the best process because, for you folks aren't here, it was a community effort. When you have not only administrators, you had teachers, you had parents, we even had some city officials on here to really look at what does the new vision for Brockton High School look like. And that's what came out about the plans and the workshops and the such. So go next slide, please. And here are the guiding educational goals, as you can see right here on the screen. But the biggest thing, and Craig, Kevin, I'm gonna go a little bit faster than that. You can go to the next slide. This is a slide that got me. Because see, this is how I went to school in Paterson, New Jersey. In the schools in Paterson, New Jersey, some of them still look like that. And I go back to the original tenet that was made earlier about our surrounding communities, where they have gotten to that picture on the right. But yet in 2026, we remain on the left. And the question becomes, and it's no longer rhetorical, how much are our young people worth in this city? Are they worth the right side of that screen? And as principal of Brockton High School, I say emphatically yes. Emphatically yes. That picture on the right prepares young people for possibilities. That prepares them to own a home here in Brockton. That prepares them to be the next mayor here in Brockton, the next principal of Brockton High School, the next superintendent, the carpenters, welders, electricians, and the such. That's the vision of the new Brockton High School. And it's going to take a lot of work. But we need to be on that right side. Next screen, please. And so when we're looking at expanding Brockton High School's offerings, well, we've taken the one step where we are an early college high school, where we have partnered with Massasoit, in which students can gain an associate's degree before they leave Brockton High School, as well as Bridgewater State. But our main focus is going to be increasing our career technical education offerings. I cannot tell you the amount of money that is spent from the city of Brockton to our neighboring schools to do some of these programs. And it's not thousands of dollars, it's upwards of millions of dollars. So think about when we can recoup some of that money and keep it right here in the city boundaries. But most importantly, train young people for sustainable employment for 20, 30, and 40 years. Being homeowners here in the city of Brockton, tax-paying citizens here in the city of Brockton, making it the vibrant city that it needs to be. And that's what the expansion of career technical education can do. And that's the vision. We are not saying we are going to be a Brockton Votech, but we are adding this to our curriculum to better prepare and better serve our students in order to meet the needs of all industries across all sectors. And that's a broad vision, but it's going to take this building project to do it. Is it a heavy lift? Yes, it is a heavy lift. But as I indicated earlier, our young people are worth it. Next slide, please. So as you can see, some of the student accomplishments that and I think I indicated with early college, we are on the verge of work-based learning opportunities where students are actually leaving school into career opportunities before they leave Brockton High School. But this is going to take partnerships between industry partners across sectors of healthcare, trade, heavy trade areas, as well as community organizations. But this is a need. This is a need that we must address now.
Thanks, Kevin. So this is the last slide, then we're obviously looking forward to some questions. Just a general update on community outreach. So we made a promise when we were hired, we will meet anyone, anywhere, anytime to talk about this project and answer questions. And we've been to some big meetings, some small meetings, and that's not just larger community forums. We'll meet people in a coffee shop, we'll go to the senior center, whatever it takes, sincerely. I encourage you all to take me up on that. So we held our first community forum on March 12th. Maybe 100, 150 people there, which is good. We hope to build off that. We were also invited to a ward meeting at Baker Elementary School in March 25th. Our next community forum is next Monday at the South Middle School. And we continue to try and attend as many community-related events, and some of them are career days. We did one on April 9th. There's another one at Massasoit on May 15th. So if you have neighborhood meetings, if you have constituents that want to ask us questions about this project, please let us know. We will go. Weekends, nights, whatever it takes. So this is actually the last slide, which is the flyer we have for community forum number 2, Monday night, April 27th at the South Middle School. And with that, again, we'd love to hear some questions.
Thank you. Councilor Thompson, you're the sponsor of this. Do you want to take us away?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good evening, gentlemen. I just want to thank you, number one, for the work that you put into this project. As you said, this has been a 14-month process. And during that 14-month process, there's probably been hundreds of man-hours put in to developing a project that the city of Brockton can be proud of. I know we're coming close to finishing the feasibility study aspect of this process, and that hopefully in the next week or so, we're gonna have some final votes for a preferred option, and then start really focusing and drilling down on the particulars of that preferred option. For my fellow city councilors and the people at home, left field, KBA, Principal McCaskill, Superintendent Tilheliani, all the members of the school committee board, the smaller working group. Thank you all for the work you're doing. It's been an amazing journey. It's been a pleasure to be a part of this group because the ideas that float around, it's not just designing a building. It's it's designing a learning center, right? It's designing a 21st century modern learning institute, and the opinions and the advice and everything that's been part of this project has really been something amazing. And I know because of the people who are involved in this project, if we do ultimately move forward and build a new Brockton High School, it's going to be something that the students of Brockton are going to reap the benefit a thousandfold. We're talking about not just jobs, but careers, right? That when they graduate Brockton High, they're not just gonna have a piece of paper, they're gonna have a foundation, and that foundation is gonna help them grow a family here in Brockton. And, I look forward to the next steps. I look forward to bringing this project to the people when we have some renderings and everything of what this may finally look like, just from some of the preliminary drawings. I mean, they look gorgeous. I know, they're all just white boxed kind of, it's nothing's in stone, but from what's being discussed, from the ideas, this is not just a square box with tables and chairs. This is an amazing campus facility that the residents of Brockton they can be proud of, the students that graduate there are going to benefit from. And so we just got to keep going. We got to keep going as a team, as a city, put this before our residents, and just hope that they make the right decision, that it's worth investing in the children, in our children. And so it's just been a pleasure to be a part of this process, this group, and we're going to continue working, and we will get this done. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Farwell, followed by Counselor Charnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think anyone can quarrel with everything that's been said about the need for a vibrant learning environment. Kevin, you and I have exchanged, I don't know about a phone message recently, but emails. And councilors, my only concern in all of this is that we're holding public meetings. We're presenting this wonderful vision of what we can do in the city, but we're not telling people how we're going to fund it. And I will be honest with you, and I sit here and I look through the reports that come out from the chief financial officer, and I just heard my colleague from Councilor from Ward 5 say, hope the citizens make the right decision. Based on your professional judgment, Mr. Sullivan, you must know now that there is a minimum and probably a maximum that we're going to have to generate for revenue in order to make this a reality. And I'm just going to throw out $50 to $100 million. And we haven't recovered yet from the fiscal year 23 school deficit. I do not know where the city would come up with that kind of money unless, and if we're going to do it, we need to tell people right out of the gate and be honest, this is all contingent upon you passing a debt exclusion or a Proposition 2.5 override. And I don't have a problem with that as long as we're honest with people and we tell them that up front. Right now, it seems like we're dangling the proverbial carrot in front of them, and we're holding these meetings, and we're raising their expectations, and we're getting them excited, and we're having them adopt the philosophy that the principal has mentioned to us, but we're not telling them how we're going to pay for it. And that is very, very troubling to me. There has been such an erosion of confidence in government and respect in public officials that unless we're willing to put those types of facts up front and in front of the public, I fear we're going to lose any credibility. So I'm going to put the chief financial officer on the spot who is sitting behind there, and I'm going to ask him what I asked him 6 months ago, and I remember the response. Mr. Clarkson, you look at finances every single day, every single week. You know that we don't have any reserves to speak of, other than the $9,044,000 we're going to transfer into the Chapter 324 reserve account from free cash. Do you see a path forward for the type of building and vision that we're hearing tonight without going to the taxpayers for either a debt exclusion or Proposition 2.5 override? Because let's get it out there. Let's be honest. Let's tell people what to expect if they want this type of a project. I think children are worth it, but we haven't broached that subject yet with the very people we represent. So, Mr. Clarkson, I would like your professional judgment as to where, given the parameters of SBA-B funding and given what the city faces financially, do you see any possibility of a meaningful project without a debt exclusion or a Prop 2.5 override?
Good evening, Dr. Clarkson.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. Council, the simple answer to that question is no, but that shouldn't be news to this council or to the public. I've said from this table and at school committee meetings for several years now that I believed that the passage of this project would require a debt exclusion. However, I've also said and would repeat tonight that when we issued the pension obligation debt in 2021, I said then, and I'll repeat now, that was setting us up to create a circumstance where the impact of that debt exclusion would be minimal, because we can take advantage of that debt when it retires and use that window of opportunity to pay for the vast majority of this project without an impact on the taxpayers. So I've worked in several different communities, and Kevin has worked on many, many projects, and we've collaborated very closely on this. We've already brought in our debt advisors, our financial advisors, our bond counsel, and are looking now at ways to fund this in a way that it minimizes the impact on the taxpayers. And so we've put a lot of work into planning how best to fund this project, and we believe we have a plan that's affordable, and that we've shown actually in some of the transition documents when Mayor Rodriguez took office that we shared with all of you. It shows how when that debt drops off in 2036, we can replace it with the high school debt and have the largest project in the history of the MSBA, but with one that needs a debt exclusion, not for 20 or 30 years, but for probably less than 10 years. And so I think we have planned for years to be able to say the things to you that I'm saying now. This has taken hundreds of hours of planning by dozens of financial professionals, because we know that it's not easy to ask the voters for more, but we've set up a scenario in which the impact will be far less than it would have been had we not done this prior planning.
But your definition of minimize may not be what the average citizen understands minimize. So you would agree that it would take a ballot question. It's either going to be a debt exclusion for a particular period of years for a specific purpose, or a Proposition 2.5 override, which would go in perpetuity. So what is your definition of minimize?
Well, in order to answer that question definitively, and I'm not being cagey, Counselor, it would be a debt exclusion. An override is only for operational purposes, so it would be a debt exclusion. In order to say how much per thousand that'll impact and what the average impact will be on the taxpayers, we will share that information and we'll share it widely. But until we have a final project number, and that's close to where we are, until we know exactly what the project's going to cost, it's really impossible to say what the cost would be per resident. But I can assure you that, and Kevin's raising his hand, that level of detail will be coming very soon.
But do we even mention at these community meetings that we may need your help? Residents who are attending, we may need your help. We may need you to pass a debt exclusion, because I have not attended one yet, but I have heard from people who did, and I do not think that the financing piece is even discussed. It's more schematic, it's more process-driven. What are we doing? How are we going about it? Who's on the committee? have we even broached the subject with the public that we're going to need your help financing this project? And I don't know the answer to that. And if we haven't, then I think that's a defect. I think they should know up front.
Yep, no, it's a good question, and I certainly don't take it lightly. I've been through 2 votes in the past 2 years, both in the South Shore, and there's never been a more challenging time to pass any type of project. People are highly sensitive, and we don't take that lightly. It's something we discuss at every single project meeting. I don't think at any point we've been misleading. I think we're at the part of the process, which is the why and the what, and the how and how much really can't responsibly come until later in the process. So the project costs, I think we have a range right now. We had a bigger range in January when we submitted 8 or 9 options to the MSBA. We've now refined that, and I think as we pick a preferred option, we have a closer range. And I'm happy to say, could be anywhere from $750 to $900 million, just for numbers' sake, right?
Total project?
Total project budget cost, yes. The challenge is once you put any numbers out there, you own them. And we won't know what the MSBA share, which is really what determines tax impact, until October or November. So that doesn't mean we haven't been exploring it. We've been having these conversations, not with the CFO, but with outside bond counsel who I've worked with on a number of schools to really figure out if we can start to put together a legitimate, credible funding plan and refine that range so that this summer we can give you some, in more detail, a funding plan and be as transparent and accurate as we can with the public. So I hear you loud and clear. What I will say, from an MSBA process perspective, this part of the conversation typically happens in the fall. It would be something that we could, accurately present in the fall. And I know you don't want us presenting a dream that, that without, really the consequences or without communicating to the public that there's going to be a cost or an ask here. So I hear you loud and clear. We're going to be presenting on Monday night, and I think we'll make a point to talk about financing, but we just don't have the details that I think you're looking for yet. We will have them, but we just don't have them at this part of the process.
All right, well, I'm going to close by saying just 2 quick things.
Yep.
One, everything that Principal McCaskill said about the high school, you could probably say about the middle schools. Because if we had the money, I would go to every one of those middle schools. I would make that the most nurturing, encouraging learning environment I could. I would help those students in that age bracket, and I would have them so fully prepared that by the time they hit the high school, they could really be successful. Because let's remember that when you hit the high school, you've already had 8 years or 9 years, including kindergarten, of our public school system. And if we haven't done a great job by then it's awfully hard to hold the high school staff and teachers responsible for that final 4 years of progress. But the last thing is, Mr. Chairman, and I'm saying this sincerely to all of my colleagues, I just want us to be honest with the taxpayers. When we find out what it's going to cost, and in 2036, yeah, maybe the debt will be less and we can do something, but we don't know what the cost of the city government will be in 2036. We have no idea. Anyone who claims they know what our budget will be and our financial requirements is I think, rubbing a crystal ball at home. So let's just be honest, because we can't afford an erosion of confidence when we're pushing a project like this and we depend upon the public for their support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Charnel, followed by Councilor Tavares.
Thank you. Again, I just celebrated my 40th birthday. I graduated from the high school 20 years ago. And I'd like to speak about some things that, we tend to miss in these processes. In the short term, obviously there's a construction project. There's economic, there's construction companies, there's suppliers, there's people being hired, there's local jobs, there's materials, there's local businesses being patronized, restaurants, gas stations, small shops, increase in workforce in our area, because this project's probably going to take quite a long time. Obviously, in the long term, we have to look at, more teachers, administrators, the increase in property values, more families moving to our community for this high school. Local spending, all these things that happen. And the reason why I bring that up is because, I think, you know, a lot of our colleagues get trapped in some of these things. I mean, if we're not planning to do something, then we're planning to do nothing. And, you know, a lot of these things is being, you know, kind of a banker and being involved in construction projects. This is how the process works. And again, we can circumvent it, we can steer it in a different way, we can take turns, but the process typically for construction is the process. And again, obviously we're gonna need to go to the taxpayers for a project that may cost close to $1 billion. And again, I think that, you know, whether we, you know, do whatever, this is going to be the outcome. But again, if we're not planning to retire debt, if we're not planning to, you know, make sure that we're fiscally responsible 10, 15 years from now, the cliff will be deepened by the taxpayers. So, you know, in my eyes, we have to, you know, listen to the professionals in the room, plan with them, be a part of the process so we're a part of the solution, and understand that this is the economical engine. You know, my greatest years were my high school years. I couldn't play football when I was an adolescent because I was too heavy. They had weight limits back then. I was called Husky. I was overweight for my, so that is where I spread my wings. And I honestly, when I got to my freshman year in high school, I didn't even know if I was going to college. By the end, I was being recruited. I ended up at a good school, and I'm here in front of my family, constituents, and people that have elected me today, all because of that high school. So giving our students the opportunity to learn in the 21st century in 2026 is more important to me than anything, because I know how difficult it is to learn in an environment where the walls are peeling, the floors are coming up, the bathrooms aren't flushing, the teacher's talking to you and you're looking at something on the wall that's falling. So I think that, you know, the council really needs to find a way to get behind a project of this size, because we need all members in order to fight this, you know, boulder up this hill with our residents, the taxpayers, you know, the state folks, all the delegations. And again, I was talking to Dr. Teliani, and there may be some other ways. There may be some additional funding. I mean, we're gonna probably go under every hole and crevice that we can find to try to make this, but I mean, I'm gonna be a champion for this project. I just want everybody to know I ran on, you know, being a champion for this project, and I'll end with that, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor, we share the same problem. I was too big to play football until high school, too. I'm laughing a bit much, Counselor. Counselor Tavares, followed by Counselor Green.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much for being here. Actually, I hear you guys all, and I just still have one question. I know the question you guys not sure yet. This project, again, will be impacted taxpayer or not? We're not sure yet, right?
I think it's likely that it will. I think that
Well,
for how much and how long, I think as we get, as we get more information on the cost, you know, a refined cost of the project and the MSBA share, we'll be able to provide you with a little more detailed information. Again, we're just not there. What I can say, although we don't have all that information, I will say, having worked at the MSBA for 14 years and seeing failed votes in other communities, there is absolutely a cost of doing nothing. The cost of doing this project, of kicking the can 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, based on the cost of construction and escalation, which I think everyone saw on public safety, could be significant. The idea of trying to do this project, which most people agree there's a genuine need for, the idea of doing this project without the MSBA, the tax impact that I think I hear some concern for would be a 3 or a 4 multiplier. So I think there is a cost to doing nothing, and I think it's important to be aware of that.
All right. Actually, I am excited with the project. I am excited to have a Brockton beautiful like New York, but I have such a lot of concern about the resident. When they're talking about resident, they're talking about my ward. Because sometimes we bring things here, and then over start turn surprise. And then we have no choice. We gotta run to the taxpayer. Taxpayers is suffering so much. Because sometimes we make a decision, We heard them, all right? As we all know right now, we're going through a lot of terrible circumstances, especially for people who have a low income. They can't afford to pay, like I work one-to-one every day, help them find a resource, including myself because I'm in the same boat. I'm in the middle class like those. If we keep and go like this, because we want a big school, definitely, I want a big school too. I want everything big. But it's another way can we find a resource or fight or whatever, so such we could do so. We all come to resident, or not to be surprised later on after next mayor take it, whatever, find the same solution. Okay, council, we gotta do this because we don't have no choice, we gotta go through taxpayer. Then we make decision without thinking twice because we don't have no choice left over. We gotta hurt resident, and then who's gonna pay? The taxpayer. And then nobody think about these things. Nobody's been thinking like, how the residents survive right now. Taxes like this, water's like this, the storm water's like that. Like, oh, I don't get it. I don't think no one think.
Thank you. We agree with you, and to look at it, and is to address previous councilors' comments as well, as far as what the cost will be and the impacts on that. I think Mr. Clarkson indicated earlier that there probably will be a tax impact on this that we see, and we will know next week. So we are happy to come back in May when we have costs to talk to you and report more detailed information and answer those detailed questions. But through that, in honor of what happened yesterday, this process is a marathon, not a sprint, and we recognize that. And that's why there's been a lot of work and talking about process leading up to, we have to answer a lot of questions before we can get to the actual cost of it, because especially when we think about the cost, if we have to go to the taxpayers, and I say if, no, as what's been already said, we only want to do it once. We want to make sure it's done right, that it's a realistic cost, and that the taxpayers, when we present that cost, the taxpayers understand what's included in that from a full transparency standpoint. And so rather than put numbers out there and back into a number and then, in a sense, justify, we want to make sure that we have everything in a fully transparent, vetted process, so that when we do come with the final number, we say, this is what is the number, this is the impact on the taxpayers, and this is what you get, and we only have one bite at the apple for this, and that's why we want to do it. And that's including the partnership with the MSBA, because as Kevin had mentioned, is as we go through this year, and getting into December, is we'll be able to refine exactly what the MSBA reimbursement will be as part of that grant process, because that will obviously have an impact on the taxpayers, because the more money we can get from the state, and that's part of what the challenge we've been working on even over the past couple of months, is maximizing what we can do to maximize and leverage the MSBA grant process to get as much money for this project as we can. And so that's why we're being very, we're being as transparent as we can, but we don't want to back into a number. We want to move forward with a number that we can then support and be able to give honest, transparent answers to of why we got there and how we got there, instead of backing into it.
I totally appreciate it. And the things I like us to do so is the survey. The resident must participate. The resident must understand. The resident must agree, because we're here to represent the resident. It's not about us. The power comes from them. They elect us to serve, to protect for their best interest. Then I like this to be very transparency, and then all the councilors need to, figure out a way to reach out to all the voters, to the taxpayer before we make the defined decision, because we don't want to surprise, we have another surprise to deal with. Figure it out, deal with that. I'm not so happy about surprise all the time.
Yep, and we appreciate it. And again, we don't take this lightly. These are the tough conversations we have in every town, whether it's a senior or just anyone who's struggling. So we get it. We would love the opportunity to speak in your ward.
By the way, I am going to do also a ward meet on the end of this month. I would definitely send you an invitation. I'd like you to be there as well.
Please do, yeah.
Yes.
And the last thing I'll say is in terms of surprises, that's why we're here in May. If and when there's a point for a vote, that wouldn't be for 9 months. And again, usually these conversations happen a couple of months ahead of time, but usually not 9 months ahead. So we're trying to avoid as many surprises and be as transparent as possible.
I appreciate that. It's transparency. I'm done for tonight.
Thank you,
so much.
Counselor. Counselor Green, followed by Counselor Nicastro.
Thank you. Let me say, thank you for the significant amount of work that you've put into this process so far. And thank you for the community outreach, being available, answering questions from the community and from elected officials as well, just to keep us abreast and to keep the process as transparent as possible. Mr. McCaskill, thank you for the incredible job that you're doing at Brockton High in serving our students. Thank you. I just have a couple quick questions for you. Mr. McCaskill, could you just elaborate a little bit about where vocational education fit into this larger plan for a new high school?
Well, CTE has been on the move for the past 15, 20 years, but it's been contained in Massachusetts at our regional VOTEX. But we're seeing more and more schools, comprehensive schools similar to Brockton High, moving that way. And I'll give you an example, Attleboro High School. Attleboro High School is a comprehensive school, roughly about 1,900, 2,000 students, and they have 20 CTE programs. When they first built this school, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin and Craig, I believe it was a small percentage of students who were involved in CTE, 30%, and now we're talking upwards of 85, 90% of the students are in CTE. This is a comprehensive school because they see the value in every single student leaving that school with a marketable skill that someone will pay money for. And so that's why CTE is so important, especially in communities that serve Black and brown students. And that's why we've got to get that on the table. The vast majority of our students are Black and brown. They don't have these opportunities in large cities and urban areas. They don't. And here we are on the precipice of providing that type of opportunity for 90% of our student body that is usually wiped out of opportunity. And we're willing to put it all out on the line for those students to have those types of opportunities.
And so is it fair to say that this project would allow the other district to increase its capacity to offer these CTE programs?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We currently we have 5 Chapter 74 programs, which are certified state programs. I mean, we're looking at going up to 2, 4, 6, 8, up at least to a minimum of 12 programs.
Okay.
And that's a great deal for a comprehensive school.
That's amazing. Now, in addition to kind of better serving our students and preparing them for the future, and as well as contributing to the larger industry by really creating a qualified pipeline of potential employees who could enter the workforce and to meet that need within the industry. Is there a financial incentive or impact for the other district, for the high school, to have more of these programs?
Absolutely. Right now, roughly about 250, 280 students each year, 8th graders, will be heading to Southeastern Regional.
Yep.
Each year, over 1,000 students are applying to that school. And contrary to popular belief, a lot of it's not because of safety reasons, because we don't offer programming. So think about when we start offering programming. And I don't know the exact per pupil cost and transportation costs. Think about if we could recoup 100 students back into Brockton in perpetuity. It's a lot of money. Plain and simple, it's a lot of money. And that's why CTE works. And that's why in a community such as ours, when we have this opportunity and, you know, in need of money as well, recouping students in dollars coming back to the city, but not only just recouping the dollars, investing in young people to learn valuable skills to move them forward. I think it's a great thing.
Thank you, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about the timeline. What I'm hearing is you're expecting to come back in May, sometime in May, with preliminary numbers for the other costs of the project. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we're looking at October, November to hear from the MSBA in terms of their share of the cost. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe by November, we'll have a good indication of what they've deemed eligible and ineligible, and we'll be able to figure out how much total cost, MSBA share, district share, which really all funnels into, eventual tax impact.
Okay, all right. Could you give us some idea of what you have seen in past projects in terms of the percentage of the cost that is covered by MSBA? Is there a range? I've heard before, and I apologize, I cannot recall where, but I've heard before that within our case, we're looking at somewhere around 80% of the other cost covered by MSBA and 20% by the city. Just a random, but if you can help us understand how that percentage is decided by MSBA and what do we need to do to maximize that coverage?
Yep, so every district in the Commonwealth has what's called a base reimbursement rate with the MSBA. It's based on wealth and poverty factors, how many free and reduced lunches a community may receive. And Brockton has a base reimbursement rate of 79.58, so not quite 80%, right? In addition to your base rate, most communities are eligible for incentive points. It could, and that could be up from 0 to 7% from anything ranging from how well you maintain the building to how sustainable the new building could be. One challenge is the MSBA caps the reimbursement rate ceiling at 80%. So we can just, for the sake of this question, this exercise, we can go with 80%. And here's kind of the more complicated part of the answer. MSBA will reimburse the city of Brockton 80% of eligible costs. Now, what does that mean, right? That means that one specific example would be if we were renovating the pool, MSBA will pay for 0 of that. So that's not an eligible cost. So when you look at, you'd say your base rate is 80%. The term that they use at MSBA is what's your effective rate? How much money are you actually getting out of this project, right? If it's going to cost $800 million, how much are you getting from the MSBA? We're working to really refine that. I can say very responsibly, it's not going to be 80% for a number of reasons. The MSBA's cost per square foot for construction cap is roughly $650, right? After you include site work. The actual cost of a high school is maybe say $1,000 or $1,100. So that delta is going to be 100% of the district. I know that's a long-winded way of just explaining this is more complicated than you're getting 80%. What we're shooting for is 50 to 60%, right? To be honest, so that's a real honest answer. We don't know exactly how much it's going to be until we go through this process with the MSBA. Our goal is to get the city of Brockton as much funding and money from the state as possible. We're working with your legislators to draft amendments to potentially take another look at that 80% cap and get Brockton some incentive points. Something like that could result in 10 to 50 million additional dollars for this project. So no stone unturned. We are looking at every avenue we possibly can, partnerships with community colleges, other state funding agencies, grants. We're looking everywhere to get as much funding as possible so that the district share is as low as possible. So I'm happy to sit down and talk about this for the next 5 hours because that's where I spent the first 15 years of my career and I love it. But for the sake of everyone else's time, I hope that answered it.
Yes, thank you for answering that. And I do look forward to more details on the funding piece. I fully support providing a learning environment to our students to be successful and to set them up for a great future. And in doing that for our students, we're doing that for our community at large. And we want to do that as responsibly and as efficiently as we can. So I look forward to seeing more details on these numbers. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Nicastro, followed by Counselor DeRosa.
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen, and this has been very informative, and I did attend the West Middle School presentation, and so many people were dancing on air looking at all of the possibilities of what the city could provide for our children in terms of a new or renovated building. And I drove home with a pit in my stomach because there was no comment about what will this cost us and how will we ever afford it. And you know, we are the keepers of the purse in the city of Brockton, and no one wants to say no to something new or something that will provide our children with important education, be it technical or Latin or otherwise. The question becomes, what can we afford and how? And so the sooner you can get numbers for us, the better it will be for me. And I don't want to say that our residents were cheated at the presentation, but that's a really important aspect of any new project. What is it going to cost? How much are my taxes going to go up? How much is the city going to be able to foot? And have you called some of our famous alumni, like the Spanx lady, to see what they're all going to put toward this new project? Because the more that we can raise, the less our taxpayers will have to afford. And those are the kind of things that worry me and that concern me, that I'm sure you're thinking of everything, and that's what I think about. My big question was, what will the state pay? And you're telling us you don't know what the percentage is yet. And I was hoping for 80 to 90%, but you've gently said it will be more like 50 to 60%, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Please keep us informed. I'd love you to come back in May with some numbers. The public needs to know, but we need to know, what do we have to do and what steps do we have to take? I have real concerns about the ability of the taxpayers to approve a tax override or a Prop 2.5 override. But really, very honestly, and I talk to a lot of people every day, but I'm willing to try if it will get our children what is necessary. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor DeRosa.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, gentlemen. My question is very simple. What's the estimated graduates that will be graduating Brockton High this year, if you have an idea?
Number of graduates, nearly 800.
In the 800s?
Yeah, our enrollment is down.
Okay. So estimated 2036, how many children will be entering Brockton High? Do you have a number or a rough estimate?
Amortizing it over 10 years, yeah, that's a tough call right now to make that determination. I know and Superintendent Dr. Tiliani, from an elementary school perspective, it looks real good for an increase, but currently our secondary numbers are down, and that's across middle school and high school. So if we're looking at an uptick, and if that continues from the elementary perspective, we can probably get back to over 4,000 students within a decade.
Add a +1, because my son's currently a first grader at the Bakers.
So, and you are guaranteed, he will be at Brockton High School, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right.
And also, just a rough idea, whether we decide to build or renovate, how long will the project take?
We don't know exactly for sure until we vote on the preferred option, until we have a construction manager on that really gives us some buy-in on how long it would take from a construction schedule perspective, but I would say it could take 5 to 6 years.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselors, that's all the speakers I've got. Does anyone have a motion?
Motion.
I'd like to move to postpone this to the second FinCom meeting in May so that they can come back. We don't have to file a new resolve and get some updated information.
Would that fit with your schedule?
Second.
Do you have a date on that? Do you know what the date of that is?
Should be the
I believe it'll be May 18th, but I don't.
18th, yeah.
That works.
Councilors, motion's been properly made and seconded to postpone this to the second FinCom in May. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Item 13, order that the following named sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $20,000 from Treasurer Personal Services non-overtime to Treasurer Personal Services overtime. Invited Treasurer Martin Brophy and Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Good evening, Mr. Treasurer.
Good evening, councilors. This transfer is basically to help cover the costs of City Hall being open on Wednesday night. I have a very small overtime budget, and with the rest of the Wednesdays through the fiscal year, I'll definitely need some money.
Motion to recommend favor.
Second.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Councilor.
Item 14, order that the following named sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $9,043,440 from certified free cash to Chapter 324 supplemental reserve. Invited Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Good evening, Dr. Clarkson.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. As I noted in my memo to you over the weekend, since the advent of the school deficit, this has become an annual process where we use the money in the Chapter 324 reserve to assist in balancing the budget, but then the requirements of that law require us to replenish it. So we thankfully had $9,043,440 in free cash. So we're just asking you to fulfill our legal requirement and move that money back to that reserve fund.
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, Dr. Clarkson. I'm going to have a few more questions about this in our budget resolve, but I believe the DLS letter says that we can't access this until June 30th of 26, because in the past, our past practice after the deficit was to put the money in and then use it to balance the next fiscal year budget. I'm assuming that's still going to be the case.
That is the plan, yes.
Okay. When can we then access this money for those purposes? That the letter said that we could not access this money until June 30th of 2026. And if we want to readdress it in the budget resolve, we can, but I believe.
So we can talk about it now or then. I have, as you know, if you see in front of you, extensive information to discuss on that budget update. I believe what the intent of this section in that letter, and I just add, and I was going to say this later in the meeting, but this letter is something that the Department of Revenue has done every year since the school deficit. So it's sort of routine, and, and the PowerPoint presentation before you, we tick through each of these items and explain what those items are.
But it does say amounts in this fund, and that's referencing the reserve fund, may be voted for use by the City Council for the fiscal 27 budget after 6/3/26. So
but I think the intent there, Councilor, is I'm not an English teacher, but the way it was worded is a little confusing. I think what they meant is that for use, not for a vote after 6/30/26, but for use after 6/30/26. And that's our intent, is to, you'll see when you receive the proposed FY27 budget, we will propose to once again use these funds to balance the budget.
Okay, understood, because thank you for clarifying that, because that did make, that was a little concerning that we couldn't access it until after that date. But if you're saying for use after that date, makes a little more sense. Thank you, Dr. Clarkson. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilors, do we have a motion?
Motion to recommend favor.
Second.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Item 15, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $125,000 from the Executive Office of Administration and Finance to the Department of Public Works, Water. Invited DPW Commissioner Patrick Hill and Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening, councilors. You want me to speak on this?
You know what, why don't I'll be the starting pitcher and then you can come in relief.
Sure.
So as I noted in my memo to you councilors, this is a grant of $125,000 from the Federal Funds Infrastructure Office. This was a grant that was applied for by the city, and this will assist the commissioner and the city in our continued efforts to assess the potential purchase of the Aquaria desalination plant.
I think you did very well.
Thank you.
Councilors? Councilor Thompson?
Just a quick question. Exactly how would it assist in that purchase?
So the initial conversations that we had with the FFIO were discussing the city if we did not receive an award from the state revolving fund in applying to the WIFIA program, which is in essence like a national SRF program. It's a little bit set up a little bit differently, but the application fee is $125,000.
So this money is to be used towards an application fee for a different type of state, another revolving fund that could help with the purchase?
It's a different funding mechanism. The rules are a little bit different, but the application fee to even have your application reviewed, it's $125,000. That's not necessarily the route we're going to go. We do have some leeway with how we spend the money. It just has to be related to the acquisition.
And what organization is that fund through?
So it's the Federal Funding Infrastructure Office. They're kind of like an arm of A&F with the state. They work both with the federal government and with the state government to release federal funds.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Farwell.
Commissioner, if you're interested in applying for federal credit for Aquaria, have you reached a point where you know what it might cost us to acquire Aquaria? I mean, it seems...
Councilor, you need your mic on.
It would seem logical to me that if you've reached a point where you're going to take $125,000 and you're going to apply for federal credit assistance to borrow money to buy Aquaria, then where are we? What amount are we talking about borrowing?
So that figure is based off of our SRF application at $55 million as an acquisition price.
$55 million?
$55 million.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilors, do we have a motion?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed?
One opposed.
Motion passes.
Item 16, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $647,185.48 from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to the Police Department. Invited Chief of Police Brenda Perez and/or her designee and Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good evening, Dr. Clarkson.
Good evening.
Good evening. Sorry. We're hung up on it being afternoon.
Okay, so this grant is for our FY26 Shannon grant. The Shannon Community Safety Initiative grant is a Massachusetts-based grant program that serves at-risk youth and young adults between the ages of 10 and 24. Funded programs are designed to reduce gang involvement and youth violence with targeted focus on prevention, intervention, and long-term support within the city of Brockton. Funded partners deliver a range of services aimed at supporting youth development and violence prevention, including summer enrichment and camp programming, mentorship and youth engagement, healthcare and human services, education on the juvenile justice system, street outreach and intervention, violence prevention initiatives, and wraparound services. The total award is $647,185.48. There is a 25% match, which we do through in-kind. It's spread throughout the entire partner, so no cost to the city whatsoever. and we currently have 8 partners selected for FY '26.
Excellent, thank you. Counselors?
Motion to recommend favorably, it's an annual grant.
Second.
Motion has been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you.
Item 18, ordered in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council approve the expenditure of $1,401.60 from Human Resources Employee Benefits to WorkCare, Inc. Invited Director of Human Resources Sandra Knight and/or her designee, and Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Good evening.
Evening, Mr. Chairman. Director Knight was unable to attend, but I'm happy to stand in her stead. As I noted in my memo to you this weekend, is to pay an unpaid bill. The details of that bill were provided to you in your agenda packets. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Counselors?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion has been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Item 19, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $19,800 from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to the Police Department. Invited Chief of Police Brenda Perez and/or her designee, and Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Welcome back. Hey, nice to see you.
Hey, nice to meet you. Long time no see. So this is our FY '26 JAG law enforcement grant. It's for $19,800, and this is specifically to ballistic vests for our officers. Each vest is worth, costs roughly around $1,000, so we'll get just about 20 vests out of this. But it's specific just to ballistic vests.
Excellent.
No match.
No match.
No match.
Even better. Counselors?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Motion has been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Sergeant. Thank you.
Item 20, ordered that that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $100,000 from the Executive Office of Education to the Department of Public Works Highway. Invited DPW Commissioner Patrick Hill and Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening, councilors. So this grant is to design, permit, and construct a new sidewalk at the New Heights Charter School on South Main Street. The project has been in design for quite a while. It finally is at the end stages, and we're confident that it will be permitted very soon and should be constructed within a few months.
All right, counselors? Counselor Charnell? Taking a motion?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion is properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, council.
22, resolved, be it resolved by the City of Brockton City Council to invite Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, Mayor Moses Rodriguez, TJ Plant, Commonwealth Compact Grant Consultant, and Juan Gonzalez, City Auditor, to appear before the Finance Committee to discuss and provide an update on the current status of the FY26 budget. Invited Mayor Moises Rodriguez, Dr. Troy Clarkson, City Auditor Juan Gonzalez, Commonwealth Compact Grant Consultant TJ Plant.
Good evening, Mr. Auditor. Good evening, Dr. Clarkson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have provided fairly extensive information that's all in front of you. What I'd like to do is go through the PowerPoint very quickly. I'll touch on all of the points that we put together and highlight the additional information that we have provided to you. Mr. Plant was not able to attend in person this evening. He is watching. He's home. It is school vacation week, but I did speak to him at length today, as we do regularly, and we're working with the clerk to pick a date where he can come in person and have an extensive discussion. But when we get to that point in the presentation, I did ask him to put together a memo with an example of some of the work that they're doing on our behalf, and so that memo is before you. But with your brief indulgence, Mr. Chairman, I just call your attention to the PowerPoint that we provided. You know what, Juan, I probably have an extra copy here so you can follow along. You know what, just check out that folder if you wouldn't mind. So just to start off, obviously, as I have said publicly, both here and at the school committee, each year here in Brockton, particularly since the deficit in 2023, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Balancing our budget is a challenge every year, and that, I mean, I don't mince words. I'm always very upfront with you, and it's the same this year. But what our team in my office and in the auditing office do on a regular basis is monitor our spending very closely. And we provide you those monthly reports. Those monthly reports are a direct output from Munis, our software, so they're a direct reflection of what spending is occurring on a regular basis. So we provided you the most recent reports a week or so ago, but we provided in front of you more recent and more updated reports as of today. And so both the city and the school spending reports that are before you are the actual reflection of what spending we have in Munis as of today. And so I'll go to the second bullet on that first page. So we are, as of today, 80.82% through the fiscal year. And our overall spending in our general fund budget is 76.82%. So we continue to track fairly significantly under our appropriations, which is important because, as you know, those budgeted but unspent funds become the basis of our free cash for the following year. So we do, once again, anticipate being able to finish the year with a surplus within the budget of at least $10 million. I do want to go back to an overall discussion that we've been having, and the packet that is in front of you that looks like this. In response to some questions from Councilor Farwell and others about our rate of collections, particularly in our enterprises, but in all of our collections, I can brought together what I call a collections task force, and it was really to analyze in detail our collections in a variety of manners, in a variety of categories. And so this before you, and I'm happy to, again, at the end, answer any questions or meet with any of you individually to review these in detail. But as you can see, we'll start with our water, sewer, and trash enterprises. Our collections are consistently above 99% for our water and sewer and refuse collections. In the first year of our billing, it is correct that sometimes those collections are much lower than that, in the 70% area, but that's when we lien those accounts in subsequent years. We are able to collect, as you can see, regularly, certainly greater than 95, and most of the time greater than 99% of the amounts that are owed. And that's really important. And so, so it's in that first year that we bill, we don't collect that whole amount, but then we lien the account and those amounts come in. And so in subsequent years, that counts as revenue towards that enterprise. And that's really important. We also track, and we have information for you here, on motor vehicle excise collections, and you can see for the last 10 years, those collections are consistently above 80%. We have a target of 80%, and I asked Marty Brophy today specifically why that target is lower than the others, and that's the nature of excise collections. We're working on comparative information from other communities, so we can show that to you as well. But generally, those amounts are lower because of the nature of motor vehicle excise and people trading cars and getting rid of cars. But consistently, we have consistent collection rates on those as well. And then you can see our largest group of tax collections in the tax levy itself. And again, you can see those collections are consistently well above 90%, and in some cases, close to 100%. So I thought that was important so that you could see the degree that we go to, the level that we go to collect the money that's owed to us. So getting back to this year, so we're collecting that. We also track the revenue very closely, and our revenues are this year generally meeting benchmarks. But because I don't sugarcoat anything, I will tell you there are a couple of revenue areas where we are experiencing a shortfall. We were planning on selling a significant amount of energy credits. We have not been able to do that because of rising energy costs. We've been using those credits to actually meet some of our needs for power within the city, and also our investment income. We have less cash on hand, and so we are falling short of our goal for the investment income. Last year, we exceeded it by a couple of $1 million. But we are very confident that because of that significant surplus in the spending, that we'll still finish the year overall with a significant, what we call a fund balance, meaning we will finish off the year cash positive. And obviously Juan is here as well. He can validate any of these things that I'm sharing with you. The enterprise revenue, we track all of those enterprise funds, again, on that same monthly basis. We've had several discussions at several different meetings about the refuse enterprise fund, and I'm very hopeful that at your meeting next Monday, we'll have a final vote on that. And in addition, as I mentioned to you at the last meeting, in addition to planning for the fourth quarter increase in the refuse rates, we are making some cost savings in that enterprise so that we finish up the year solvent on that one. We do still believe that in order to keep the water enterprise solvent and for the long term, that some water rate adjustments will be needed. So we will be filing soon an increase to get that on the agenda so that we can have a discussion about that at the ordinance committee meeting and then with the wider council. There's been a lot of discussion recently in the community about net school spending, and so I just wanted briefly, as part of our overall discussion of this year's budget, touch on that because there is frankly a lot of misinformation out there about this topic, and I think it's really important to understand the position of the city as it relates to the monies that you have appropriated to fund the public schools. So for for every year that I've been here, we have met or exceeded net school spending as required by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. This year is no different. Last year is no different. One of the challenges that the school department has had with some of the reforms that the schools and I put in together after the deficit is meeting that total spending. And so for the last 2 years, the school department has finished the fiscal year with money on the table. So with an appropriation from the city council and through all their grant funding, and they haven't been able to spend up to that limit. And so net school spending has not been met, not because the city didn't provide sufficient funding, but because the schools were unable to spend all the money allocated to them. However, the steps that the auditor took in both of those years was shortly after the beginning of the new fiscal year, money was transferred back to the schools to meet that spending target. So $7.2 million in FY24, $7.5 million in FY25. That money has been transferred to the schools and is readily available for spending without further appropriation. When the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education looks at that the schools haven't spent up to that amount, they say you haven't met net school spending. But I want to be crystal clear to every member of this council and to every citizen of Brockton watching. The city of Brockton has appropriated sufficient funds every year to meet net school spending. That's unequivocal and not up for debate. One of the things, and I know the councilor brought up that letter that we've received for the last couple of years from the Department of Revenue. One of the challenges that I'm trying to work with, and we actually have a meeting with the Department of Revenue tomorrow to provide them this same update, is when DESE talks about a deficiency in net school spending, the Department of Revenue looks at that and says, boy, if you haven't met your spending requirements, then you need to put that difference away in a fund to meet that requirement. But as I just mentioned, we have done that. It's just really reconciling the nomenclature, the word usage between DESI and DOR so that everyone understands that the city has indeed met its requirement. So, as I mentioned a couple of times now, since that deficit in the schools, the DOR each year has sent a letter listing items that need to occur prior to setting the tax rate. And so what I'd like to do very briefly is tick through most of the major items in that letter from March 24th so that you understand how we're dealing with those items. There was nothing in this letter that was a surprise to either Juan or myself, but I do want to tick through the status. That CARES deficit, we have provided to the school department a detailed listing of each and every invoice that comprises that deficit from back during the pandemic, and each and every one of those expenses was incurred by the school department and not the city. And we've provided on several occasions, but more recently just to Open Architects, a detailed list from our accounting software, from Munis, that demonstrates each and every one of those expenses. And so we are hopeful, and we expect that certainly with the money that I just mentioned that is out there, that's been provided to the schools, that they will be able to satisfy that deficit. The Chapter 324 reserve, you've just taken steps tonight at this meeting to move that forward in the process, so that money, once you vote that finally, will be returned to the Chapter 324 reserve fund. As I've mentioned on several occasions, I do believe that particularly given the fact that we have more than $20 million now in a pension stabilization fund, that requirement for that Chapter 324 reserve should be removed. It's really to comply with the law that we move it back and forth, but it's essentially free cash every year that we use to balance the budget. The health insurance trust fund, as noted in here, we also get monthly reports from our consultant on the operation of our health insurance program here. As you know, we raised rates 14.5% on July 1st to meet the growing demand for healthcare costs for our employees and their dependents. The cost of the GLP-1s, as I've mentioned to you before, is a large part of that. We spent more than $6 million last year on GLP-1 drugs. We will not be covering them for elective use as of July 1st, but that increase of 14.5% is bearing financial fruit. And so through February, the latest reports that we have from our consultant, our health insurance operation is running a surplus of just over $5.2 million. And they are projecting at the end of the fiscal year that surplus will still be a pretty robust $3.3 million. Despite that, we have already notified our employees that the rate increase for next July 1st, in order to keep that fiscal solvency, will be 7.5%. On the issue of local receipts, I learned from my mentor more than 30 years ago to conservatively estimate local receipts. This was another impact of the deficit that when that deficit occurred, we were able to increase our local receipts estimates by $10 million and still meet those estimates because we had estimated them so conservatively. So we continue to do that as conservatively as we can, and certainly consistent with the Department of Revenue guidance. On the enterprise funds, you will see when we present the budget to you several weeks from now that the FY27 revenue estimates for those enterprises are consistent with the projections for this year, other than, hopefully, we will have a fairly significant increase in the revenue estimates for the refuse enterprise fund should you proceed with that fee increase next week. There's also been some discussions publicly about the indirect costs. So when I came, there was no formula or direct relationship between the indirect costs that were being charged to the enterprises and the actual costs of the city. So we actually went out and hired a consultant to do a detailed analysis of all of those enterprises and the back office support that's provided by the city, by Juan and me and a law department and the entire city. So each year, since then, that was back, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, maybe more, when Karen Praval was the auditor. I'm sorry, when Karen was the budget director. And so each year we update that formula based on the salary costs and health insurance cost increases. And we do provide a copy of that in your budget book so that you can see that actual calculation. I did want to provide you a quick update on the Community Compact grant because a lot of work's been going on behind the scenes with that grant. So the Commonwealth provided a $150,000 grant, their highest ever, and with your generosity, we matched that with $100,000 from the city. 2 main contractors, a law firm that was brought in that has been reviewing all of the collective bargaining agreements, creating some consolidated agreements, and developing strategies for the city for moving forward and negotiating and providing options for negotiating that make all of those agreements more consistent with one another and help meet the financial needs of the city. In addition to that, as you know, Open Architects, we call them OA. We're working closely with them. 2 main deliverables. One is what we call a financial dashboard, and you can see in the memo from TJ Plant an example of that. The dashboard for the schools is up and running. We will soon have a dashboard for the city so that any of you, any citizen, can go on in real time and essentially see the report that I've developed for you, that my team has developed for you in real time through the city's website, and go in anytime and look at in real time what money we have on hand, what we've spent in the budget, and that's really important. The other thing that OA is doing with us is creating a long-term financial plan. So some of the questions that were asked tonight about long-term spending, we hope to have a 3- and 5-year plan where we're projecting out those costs so that all of you can see what we believe that cost escalation is for all departments. So that's a brief overview. FY26, we continue to monitor that very closely and do anticipate ending the year with a significant fund balance. The FY27 budget is in final preparations. We have the last of our departmental reviews. That's actually with the DPW this Thursday. I will be getting a draft balanced budget to the mayor in the next week or so, and then we will be making final adjustments to present a balanced budget to you, as we always do in June. One final note, because it's important, that school and city collaboration does continue. We have regular meetings, and our primary contact is Open Architects and TJ Plant, and we have regular communication with him, both in meetings and phone calls, and so I think we see the fruits of those activities with the improved reporting that we've been able to provide to you. Finally, before Juan and I are happy to answer any questions, again, what we've also provided to you is an updated city expenditure report as of today. And we created, as you know, a similar report for the schools. And so we printed that out as well, and happy to, at any time, as I said, meet with any of you individually, and look forward to your questions this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Thompson, I believe you filed this?
I did. Thank you. I did. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, Dr. Clarkson and Mr. Auditor. So I guess just, again, thank you for being here. We appreciate your time and the amount of effort you put into putting the budget together and presenting it to us. We know, I've been here about 7 years now. This is not easy, especially after the deficit, thinner margins, and, everything's estimates, and it's hard to get a full grasp of things when we're months away from setting the budget. But I just want to go over a few things so that I can get a better understanding of exactly where we stand. And I'm just going to go starting from the first page from your presentation and going over the investment income. And so can you tell me, so these are our revenues, essentially. You're saying that when it comes to our solar revenue shortfall, a lot of that's due with us holding on to these credits and using them for our own purposes and not putting them on the market and actually making income off of them.
Right.
And additionally, that our investment income, that's not making the return that we initially expected. Is that essentially what you're saying?
Yes, last year we actually, and I'll get those, we have that revenue report and we produce that regularly. I'll gladly provide you all a copy of that tomorrow so I can give you the exact numbers. But last year, we actually realized through the, I will say, the aggressive investment strategies from Marty Brophy. We're limited by law of how we can invest public money, obviously, and it's generally low risk vehicles. But last year, because of Marty's expertise in money management and keeping cash on hand, we were able to exceed that amount pretty significantly over our projections. And at the end of the year, our investment income exceeded $5 million, I believe. And so we estimated a similar amount. This year, just our cash on hand is less because some of the larger projects that we've undertaken, we've spent that down. We have not yet gone back to market to obtain additional cash. We actually have a pretty large borrowing that we'll be doing in June, just general obligation borrowing. And so because we're doing that later in the year, we don't have as much cash on hand, so that investment income is reduced.
So how does that affect our local receipts now? So essentially, does that mean we have a lower revenue coming in?
Right.
So how does that, generally, I believe this letter says, I guess from what was projected to what was actually on hand, looks like a difference of maybe $2 million. So is that where we're at, kind of a $2 million less in local receipts than what we initially thought?
I'm hopeful that it's not that much, but as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, again, we produce those reports monthly, but we can produce them daily if we need to. And so I'll give you that exact amount. But yes, in that, we were allowed to project the investment income at the number that we did. The Department of Revenue has to approve that because we had attained that number last year. The number is lower this year, and so when you see your budget for FY27, that estimate for investment income will be no higher than what we actually do receive in investment income for this year. So any difference in that, any revenue below what we had projected it will need to be covered by our fund balance or those expenses that were budgeted but not spent. And so that $10 million balance that I talk about, that can absorb any revenues that were not realized.
Okay. And then when you say that 10 million, is that our projected free cash or is that just leftover monies?
That is just free cash, essentially, is revenues in excess of estimates and budgeted but unspent funds. There are other contributing factors, and Juan can go into that in more detail. But those are the two main drivers of free cash. And so that budget surplus is one of the basis. It's not, if you have, for easy math, if you have $10 million that you budgeted but didn't spend, that doesn't mean your free cash is going to be $10 million. As you've seen, sometimes there are deductions and that there are other funds on hand that also increase that amount.
So you're confident that our projected surplus can absorb our projected loss of revenue, essentially?
Very confident, yes.
Okay.
You agree?
And just on that issue of local receipts and estimates, I remember in past budget conversations, you said that we're allowed to use actuals and then bump it a percentage for future projections. Is that true, that we were able to kind of, in our future projections of revenue, we're able to look at what we actually had in actuals the year before and add some certain percentage? I'm seeing from this letter that we're not able to do that. So can you just kind of explain that?
Sure. Generally, it's been my practice, not just here in Brockton, but in all places where I've worked and been responsible for budgets, to project local receipts at no more than 75 or 80% of the previous year's actuals. It's a very conservative approach. That's the approach that I took in my first several years here. That is exactly why we were able to increase those local receipt estimates by $10 million to help satisfy the deficit. Since the deficit, we've not had the luxury to be able to do that, and we've had to estimate those local receipts at right around where we thought they were going to be. So what the DOR is mentioning in that letter is a common, sustainable financial practice. It's not anything new to us.
Understood. All right. Looking at the school budget and the statement you were making regarding net school spending, and that in fiscal year 24, the 7.2, fiscal year 25, 7.5. Is there any projected surplus for fiscal year 26?
So what I can tell you, and again, we do communicate regularly. If you look at the current numbers, approximately 80% through the year, at least this report shows about 68% spent. Now, there may be expenses that sometimes are backloaded, or you have higher expenses towards the end of the year. So I want to be very crystal clear. I'm not saying that spending will be 12% below the budget. It does appear that trending that there will possibly be another surplus at the end of this year. But I think that's why we have regular meetings and include the school finance folks, and we call them the finance team meetings, so that we're having discussions at that level and being able to answer those questions.
If there is a projected net school spending surplus, I know DESE, doesn't like us to incur these surpluses. They look at them as deficits. You're saying that we would potentially be able to satisfy our the city's CARES Act deficit with some of that funding?
I believe so. Yes.
So that's the conversation we're having right now. Is that a Schedule 19 issue, or is that just them covering a deficit that we're stating they incurred because the items that you're saying were purchased were school-related?
That's more of an accounting question, and I'll yield to Juan as to how exactly that would be managed on our financial statements. But certainly, from my perspective, that the deficit exists. We've known about it for some time. That it is unequivocal that all of the expenses related to that were school expenses, and that there are sufficient funds on hand to satisfy that. So that's the perspective that I bring to it, and the request that I made to the schools through Open Architects. But Juan, can you answer the
just before, these are actual physical items, right? These are extra desks or other sort of tangible items. Masks.
Hand sanitizer and
Right.
desks and all.
Dividers or separators, whatever they were called.
And to be clear, any of those expenses are all a public record. If any counselor would like the same detail we provided to the folks at OA, then we're happy to provide it to you.
But is there any consideration of selling these things to help maybe offset some of this deficit?
That's certainly a conversation we can have with the school operations people.
Secondly, we're talking about net spending. Maybe we could spend a few minutes regarding non-net. So I've been following along with the finance meetings of the school committee, and it seems like there's going to be a request for about $6 million for non-net. That's essentially transportation-based. And then there's the question of whether, you know, we're looking at another contribution from circuit breaker, or, you know, whether some of these, I don't even know if of these net school spending surpluses could be directed that way. But talk to me about non-net transportation, the $6 million ask, and how are we looking to satisfy that?
Sure. And the $6 million comes from?
I thought that's what I thought I heard that was the number from finance, or if I'm wrong about that number, please correct me. But I remember the superintendent saying something that they would be looking for their $6 million. So I don't know if that was directly related to non-net spending or what exactly that was.
I want to be, again, crystal clear, particularly in this highly politically charged environment when it comes to the schools. And it doesn't have to be. That's really unfortunate.
No, absolutely not.
And it's not here in this room. I want to make that clear. So I don't want to put words in the superintendent's mouth, and I am not doing that. Bria and I have worked very hard and have a very productive and very cordial professional relationship. So I want to make it clear, I'm not speaking on her behalf. I do believe that when she spoke of the $6 million, it was not about the non-net transportation. In the letter, one of the letters we got from DESE, it spoke to the city's deficiency of $6 million in the net school spending. And so we had a meeting, and I don't want to put words in DESE's mouth either, but some of the points I was trying to get across to DESE in that meeting were that I don't believe there is that deficiency in net school spending. I just went through the mechanics of how we met our obligation. But it's also semantics, because you're right. What we would consider and call a surplus, if you get $1 million and you only spend 800, then in our parlance, we would say that there's a surplus of $200,000. But in DESE parlance, that's a deficiency, because and I understand it, but it's confusing because they didn't spend up to the amount that they were appropriated, so it's considered a deficiency. And so they come back to us and say, there's a deficiency because you didn't meet your required spending. But from our perspective, we actually, as I explained, at the end of the year when they didn't meet that spending, we said, okay, but we're going to make sure you have all the resources you need to meet that spending, and literally gave them 7.2 and then $7.5 million.
When does that transfer happen? The 7.2 or the 7.5? Is that at the close of the budget?
Yes. And,
okay.
And it's what we call a journal entry. It's more of an accounting, because the money had already been appropriated. So no vote was required from this body because we didn't need you to appropriate the money again. You already did that. It was just an accounting mechanism to essentially say that since they didn't spend it, it was still on hand. So we, for ease of description, and jump in if I say anything you disagree with, Juan, we put it on their side of the ledger. And so that $6 million figure was part of that whole transaction.
From fiscal year 26 or prior years? 24
and 25, and the monies were transferred, and then 25 in this year and 26. Relating, though, to the non-net, we certainly do, when you look at the report, that it does appear, as they have in the last several years, for all of the dynamics we've been discussing for quite some time, that the spending in non-net will exceed what was appropriated. But it is certainly my hope, and we're having discussions at least with Open Architects as the representative of the schools, that there will be sufficient circuit breaker and other funding on hand to be able to satisfy that, so that a further appropriation won't be requested from the city.
Do we have any understanding of what that number is?
At this point, I think it's too early to tell. We know how we're trending, but that's one of the items that I can, in a follow-up, certainly get to you.
Absolutely, and we'll be tracking that during the school committee discussions as well. Sorry. You know, one of the things that kind of bit us in the butt last year was the health insurance trust fund issue. I know we had a conversation about that, about this again seemed to be a definitional problem about, you know, I think we said that we had the money, but it wasn't in an account that they liked, or, you know, our consultant said we can move forward this way, but then DOR said, no, we don't want you to move forward that way, therefore we had to make the transfer out of free cash. I want to make sure that we don't run into that problem again. And so you stated that there's currently no deficit in the health insurance trust fund. In fact, we got a projected $3.3 million surplus. So can we talk about how to avoid the issue this year that we incurred last year?
Sure, and I'll give you that from my perspective, and then again, happily defer to Juan if he wants to add anything. It's important to note that the reason why we were able to transfer that $9 million from certified free cash to the Chapter 324 trust is after we went through that with the Department of Revenue, Juan worked very closely with them, and as you know, because you all are copied on these memos, the Commonwealth recertified our free cash. And one of the items that was recertified, essentially the money that came back to us, was that amount from the health insurance deficit, correct?
Correct.
So we were able to, working with them, demonstrate that the city should be able to get credit for that money, and we did. So the money came back to us, and you just voted tonight to transfer it into the Chapter 324. Juan is in touch regularly. I don't want to say how often, but on a very regular basis, he can tell you exactly how often. With the city's contacts at the Department of Revenue, I've been on their request providing the numbers. So those numbers that I quoted to you tonight, you know, those aren't Troy's numbers. Those are independently calculated numbers from our health insurance consultant, who's been doing this sort of stuff for 30 years and is regarded as one of the best in the business. And so those are their reports with data directly from Blue Cross and Harvard about our paid claims and about the money we've collected. And so that the $5 million number is the actual number as of the last report. That's through February. And then the 3.3 is what they project will be the number at the end of the year. And so we will continue to provide that data and that information to the Department of Revenue to ensure that that's reflected in our end of the year statements. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I know that the, excuse me, that the Department of Revenue has asked us for these monthly reports to make sure that we don't get into this situation again. We have been providing that to them, and they seem to be very satisfied with that.
Okay, appreciate that. How are we doing on the fiscal year 25 audit? Is that complete?
No, but we do anticipate that the fiscal 24 audit was just completed, and that has been sent out to our rating agencies and to our investors that hold debt from the city. The auditor assures me that the fiscal 25 audit will be complete by June 30th of this year.
They also talk about the fiscal year 26 budget to actual revenue and expenditure reports from Munis for both the city and the schools must be submitted with the balance sheet. Are we on track to get that done?
Yeah, that's common. That happens. That what they're talking about is essentially these reports that I provided to you tonight, but the raw data from Munis.
Okay.
You do that every year, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to add to that that is the standard when we submit our year-end financials, that we have to give them the fund balance report, which basically says what our undesignated fund balance is at the end of the year, any net school spending carryovers, anything like that, plus all revenues and all expenditures that we have on Munis. That gets submitted in with the combined balance sheet, so they can tie everything out. That is standard practice.
Now, the balance sheet's supposed to be submitted in what, November? Sometime
Late November, yeah.
But we didn't submit it until, what, February of this year?
No, this year we submitted it in early December.
Early December.
Yep.
What was that report that they requested in February?
That was the Schedule 19. So I know that during my tenure, as I mentioned before, in accounts committees and things of that nature, that my office has had a lot of turnover. So what they've done in the past is they would submit the balance sheet, and then they would submit the Schedule A. That Schedule A is supposed to be submitted with the balance sheet, usually late November, early December. However, that got always punted down. What I'm trying to do this year is to make sure that the balance sheet and Schedule A get submitted all at once, which is why everyone received that notification. I believe it was in February.
Great. And do we have any special revenue deficits projected for fiscal 26?
As of right now, no. But if I see anything, obviously I will, notify Dr. Clarkson and everybody else.
Okay. I believe that's the extent of my questions. Oh, just one last thing. Okay. So you talked about collections, and when I was speaking with the DPW commissioner, and they talk about the liens, right? So my understanding was when we lien an account, that we're able to get those monies every year from the mortgage holder, right? That if there's an escrow balance for taxes or other say, principal balance on your house issue, and you pay some extra monies that are held in escrow to pay your property taxes and water and sewer, that refuse is also an account that can be liened and satisfied at the end of the year. And this is not those multi-year liens where you wait for the sale of the house to be satisfied. So can we just maybe clarify that? A lot of people think when they hear lien, they think it's only satisfied at the time of the sale of a house, but that's not correct. We actually get paid every year on a vast majority of the difference of those who didn't pay, actually every year. Is that correct?
You are correct. And that's what's reflected in this chart that we provided to you. And so it is not that you got to wait for the sale of the house. Most, not all, but most mortgages are paid by the bank and the taxes as well through that escrow account. And so I understand, and we reviewed this afternoon with both Marty and John O'Donnell, that when those liens occur, that the banks tend to take care of those so that there isn't a lien on the property. And then it's just the escrow payment is increased for the homeowner, the person who has the mortgage.
Right.
And that's why you see collection rates exceeding 99%.
And I think that's important to state, because when people hear a 76 collection rate, and then we're asking them for fees increase, they rightfully say, well, why don't we focus on the people who aren't paying? But if we take the whole picture into account, we're looking at about 94, 95% of people paying. And then you say, oh, that's made up by liens, that extra 20% is made up by liens. People think, well, sale of a house, we don't see that money for 10, 15, 20 years, but that's not the case. We actually see that money every year. And so I just think it's important to clarify that.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor. And that's why I think we provided you information, not just from this year, but going back 5 years, so that you see that it's not an anomaly to have collections exceeding 99%. It's consistently every year.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. As always, we appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Farwell, followed by Counselor Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a lot of questions, but I want to pick up on this issue of collection rates, and I'll refer to the sheet that you handed out to us. And you'll notice at the bottom of the page where it says refuse lien collections, even after 5 years, we still owe $472,446, which is not an insignificant sum of money. And I think people are missing the point. The people who complain to me say, why should I struggle to balance my family budget and pay what is owed to the city on time when you folks just sit back and decide, well, we'll lien it and we'll eventually collect it. We don't send out a second mailing indicating that.
Counselor Farwell, is your microphone on?
Thank you. We don't send out a second communication saying that you owe us money. We don't take any overt action, I assume, to shut off water. They don't understand why the city does not take a more aggressive manner towards collecting what is owed. So I guess my question to you, Dr. Clarkson, would be, do we ever have to take a bond anticipation note to borrow enough money to meet payroll and expenses in anticipation of revenue?
No.
We don't.
Those are called revenue anticipation notes.
Okay.
And in my time here, we've not ever had the need to issue those.
Okay, good. All right, let's go on to the Department of Revenue letter very quickly. So we just transferred we recommended favorably transferring $9,043,440 into the Chapter 324 Supplemental Reserve Fund. But eventually that's going to be taken, I assume, in whole to balance the FY '27 budget?
Correct.
So what are we left with for reserves?
Well, that will deplete the entirety of that amount, and there is, in addition to that, a small balance in free cash of approximately $900,000 that we will use to balance the budget.
That's it, correct?
We do have a stabilization account.
989,000?
The stabilization account has about $1 million in it, and we do have the pension stabilization account that has in excess of $20 million in it.
Okay, I wasn't going to bring this up, but if we have $20 million in that pension reserve, why did we go to the retirement board and ask to defer payment of what we owed them in 2026 until no later than June 30th, 2026?
No. I think we're mixing things here. So we went to the retirement board and actually asked them to extend the fully funded date for fully funding our accumulated liability to 2038. The law allows us to go out to 2040. And so as part of our overall strategy to provide budgetary relief for both the city and the schools, we asked the retirement board to push out our fully funded date to 2038 and to increase the proposed rate of return for our investments from 6.75% to 7%. I should note that a 7% proposed rate of return is right in line and consistent with other retirement systems throughout the Commonwealth and is still fairly conservative. So working with our team of our financial advisors, the retirement board itself, trying to provide as much budgetary relief as we could between now and 2040, we asked them to make those changes in addition to approving the issuance of additional pension obligation debt before June 30th.
Okay, I wrote, pardon me, I wrote to the retirement board and I received a response first on April 7th. I wrote, the text below from the CFO indicates a $20 million pension stabilization fund. That amount remains today. What am I missing here? If you have pension funds available, why wouldn't we pay the retirement board what was owed? And the answer I got back, I have no idea. Perhaps the city is receiving better interest rates on holding the money than they will pay out in interest on the POB. Or perhaps he's thinking the city will need this for next year. This is a question for your CFO. Did we not go to the Brockton Retirement Board and ask them for leeway in paying them funds that were owed? And they said, yes, we will enter into that agreement with you, but you have to pay it by June 30th, 2026?
Well, yes, but Councilor, with all due respect, you're confusing the issues. The money in the pension stabilization was money that we put away in 2021 so that should the market crash, we would still be able to meet our obligations to pay that annual amount to the Brockton Retirement Board. The deferral of this year's payment was because we were going out and are going out to issue the remaining $59 million of pension debt. So we asked them, as we did in 2021, as we did in 2005, to not have to pay the remaining amount for this year because we're going to hand them a check before June 30th for $59 million. So it was part of, it wasn't because we didn't have the money. It's because we were going to pay them a much greater amount than what was due for this year with the issuance of the remainder of the pension debt. But I don't know with whom you spoke, but anyone over there should know and does know that that $20 million that's in the stabilization fund is there specifically to be a safety net against market fluctuations so that if we needed it, we could pay our obligations.
Two things. If you paid them what we owed them and didn't defer anything, they invest those funds, so wouldn't they get a greater return on their investment? If you pay them what we owed them, if instead of deferring what we owed them, if we had paid them, they would have taken what we pay them, and I assume they would have invested it as they do their income, and they would get a rate of return on that money. By not giving them the full amount and deferring something, they didn't have that amount to invest. And wasn't there even a discussion about if something isn't paid, there'll have to be some interest figured in on what we would owe them?
Well, yes, that was if we didn't wind up issuing the pension debt, which we're on schedule to do. But I have to respectfully answer, the answer to your question is no. It is no, because what the amount that we're talking about is $8 million was the deferral, right? $8 million. We're going to hand them a check before June 30th for $59 million. So I would say the interest that's earned on $59 million far exceeds what they would have received if we had paid them the 8. And so this was a full, above board, eyes wide open transaction that I went to them with the mayor and said, we're going to give you $59 million before June 30th. And so we would like to not have to, in addition to that, pay you $8 million. And the board unanimously agreed that that would be a good idea.
All right, let me drill down a little further. Is it not accurate to say that of the money that you're going to borrow for the pension obligation, you're going to use a portion of that borrowing to satisfy what we are going to owe them as part of the FY27 budget? Because every year we have to pay them a certain amount of money. Are you not going to use a portion of that borrowing to satisfy the amount that we owe for in the FY27 budget?
Well, yes, of course, as we did in 2021.
All right, so that's what worries me, because that means we have a structural deficit problem that, absent that borrowing, we would be struggling to find that money, correct? Absent the borrowing that you're going to do in the next few weeks or whenever, and the money that you're going to take from that borrowing, if we didn't have that, we'd have great difficulty paying the retirement board what we owe them in FY27.
Well, yes, of course, Council, but I can also say to you that if we didn't borrow the $300 million in 2021, our payment next year in the budget would be a full $30 million, almost $40 million more than it is. And so
I completely agree with that. What I'm trying to get across here is I don't like borrowing to meet annual obligations. We should have a revenue stream, whatever it is, from taxation, property taxes, unrestricted general government aid, grants. We should have a revenue stream in this city, and then we should take that revenue stream and we should apportion it to the operation of city government for a given fiscal year. And when we have to borrow to get through a fiscal year's obligation, that worries me, because eventually that amount that we owe the pension board is going to be pretty significant. We're handing out salaries now, school side and municipal side, and that pension obligation or that pension deficit is going to keep going up. We've got people that are going to walk out the door and retire with $160,000, $180,000 per year pension. What happens when we can't borrow anymore because the amount is too great? Are we going to keep borrowing?
we won't need to keep borrowing, Counselor, because with this final borrowing, we will be nearly 100% fully funded. I'm just going to respectfully but vehemently disagree with you. When we borrow this final amount, we will be one of the best funded and most secure pension systems in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I think any financial expert that deals with pensions will tell you that what we have been able to do, and by the way, the 2021 pension obligation bond saved, not, this is no hocus pocus. These are actuaries that came up with these numbers, not me. Saved the city $95 million over 15 years. It was the only reason why we were able to build that public safety building without a debt exclusion. And so this has been very careful financial planning by leading experts in the pension bond field. And so, yes, salaries increase. Yes, our pensions always increase. But the amount that we owe to the Brockton Retirement Board is an actuarial calculation of what we will need to satisfy current pensioners, that's the normal cost, and future pensioners based on current salaries. And so I know we are the envy, imagine that, of many communities in the Commonwealth for our forward thinking and our financial and fiscal responsibility on pensions. In fact, the city of Newton now, as we speak, is looking to extend their fully funded date, to increase their proposed rate of return, and to issue pension debt, exactly what Brockton has done. We are a leader in funding our pensions because we formed a group of experts. And if you remember, those of you that were on this council in 2021, they all came and sat in front of you and said that it was a sound financial decision. And I still believe with every fiber of my being that it was and is.
Again, I'm not going to go back. I don't disagree with you back then. My point is we are borrowing to meet an annual obligation. It's like we're kicking the can down the road, and someday we're going to reach a point where the amount of money that we owe the pension board for the retirees on an annual basis is going to be so high that I'm not sure we're going to be able to continue to borrow to get out of it. To me, it should come out of the budgetary appropriations of the city. I don't ever remember borrowing money when I was mayor to pay what we owed the retirement board. I will double check that. And if I'm wrong, I will certainly publicly apologize. I don't ever remember doing that, and I don't think the state would have allowed us to do it, given the circumstances.
But I believe you did, because the first pension obligation bond was in 2005. But let me be clear. The only reason why we're issuing additional pension debt now is that you authorized it. We can't go back and borrow more money unless we come back to the city council. This council authorized $360 million in pension debt. You approved it. And we issued 300, and now we're issuing the final 60 to fully fund our pension system. I think all of the experts with whom I discuss this are thrilled that our pension system is going to be funded at 100%. There are public pension systems in this Commonwealth that are funded at 35, 40%. Those are the folks that should be nervous.
I think I've mixed apples and oranges here. The pension system is one thing. The annual appropriation that's required for the retirement board for the city of Brockton retirees is what I was focusing on. And I think we're going to borrow money to pay that. It's not going to come out of the money that we have available for the operation of city government. But let me move on, because I want to go to non-net school spending. On the first page, I notice that we have $1,623,082.87 in the red for, I think it's bus drivers. And then we are $435,247.47 in the red for overtime. So in round figures, that's about $2 million. Where is the $2 million to offset that going to come from unless the school committee is willing to take surpluses that are in other categories on this document and move it around and offset those deficits. And there's no guarantee. I have no idea what they'll do. I don't, from week to week, I don't know what they're going to do. So if they don't do that, where would the money come from?
So it's a similar response, Councilor, to the question from Councilor Thompson. I would call your attention to the final page in that packet that we provided you.
I know right where you're going, and I'll tell you what it is. You're going to get down to the fact that True remaining budget, $5,879.41. Correct?
No, I have a true remaining budget. It shows
Very bottom of the
deficit
second
of
page.
888,000. But that also includes an encumbrance, which means money that has been set aside but not yet spent, of $5 million, right? And so there is a little over $17 million appropriated, just less than $13 million spent, leaving $4 million in the remaining budget, with $5 million encumbered. And so I know they're watching that spending very closely. That's what I was speaking about with Councilor Thompson, and that's what we talked to the folks at Open Architects about. If some of those costs are related to special education, then we can use circuit breaker funds to address any of those deficits. That final amount hasn't been determined yet, but I can assure you that Open Architects, that our assistant auditor for schools, and that Juan himself monitor very closely so that we finish the year with a positive balance.
But you agree that it's going to take a vote of the school committee to approve moving that money around? You may have $5,414,551.76 encumbered but not yet spent. But in order to use that, because by state law, we cannot tell them where to use the money that we give to them, that's going to be a, we hope they cooperate type of situation, correct?
Yeah, but the school, yes and no. The school committee would not have to vote. This is the budget that they voted, right? The budget that you vote is the appropriation to the schools, the 254 million, and then the 17 million. Yeah. Within that, the school committee has very broad authority of how they appropriate that money. So the encumbrance is not a school committee vote. That's money that's being spent under the authority of the superintendent. And so that $5 million that's been encumbered has not yet been actually spent. The nature of an encumbrance, and again, Juan, if I say something that's off base, please jump in. But the encumbrance is money that has been sort of set aside and identified as needing to be spent, but it's not money that's actually yet been spent, and that's why it's being watched very closely. So that would not take that's a very long answer to your question, that it would not take a vote of the school committee to not spend all of that $5 million.
Right, and I'm not going to spend all night on this, but the munis budget is $17,035,000. That's the bottom of page 2, says munis budget, and the encumbrances are $5,428,551. So you're telling me that they're going to spend they're going to spend $5 million less, or that munis budget could have been down around 12 or 13 million.
No, I'm not saying that at all. If you look at the report that we provided, it's showing if they spend all of that $5 million, then the non-net school spending will be in a deficit of approximately $888,000. What I said to Councilor Thompson and then repeated to you is what has happened the last couple of years is that they have been able to identify costs within non-net that are appropriate expenses for circuit breaker and cover those deficits through that. So they have not come back to the city looking for a further appropriation.
Okay, so maybe, I mean, I don't know whether I've got something different, and I don't know about my colleague. This is what was on my desk when I came in, non-net school spending. I don't have any $888,000 figure.
It should be on the very last page of that packet, no?
It's not here.
Okay, it could.
Yeah, it's not.
Okay, why don't we do this, Counselor? If you want to send me the page that you're looking at, then I can schedule, as we do frequently, to have a meeting to address it. But I think that the exact numbers, I think, are less important than the process, right? And that is what we've done the last several years is We monitor this number very closely. As we get close to June 30th, we work with Open Architects and with the school financial staff to identify expenses that are appropriately covered by circuit breaker, and we finish the year without the need to have to come back to the city council and ask for additional funds. I anticipate that that will be the case this year.
I hope you're right, because I worry about it. I worry about it. That's why I asked the question. So if all goes well, we might have $888,171 in the negative, but you're offsetting that with the $5 million in encumbrances that haven't been spent yet.
That's a possibility. Again, the other possibility is that the schools are able to cover those costs with funds that they have on hand.
If they're willing to do it, okay.
Yes.
Well, I guess the last question I have is more philosophical. Do you think the city is in a strong financial position with limited reserves and the fact that we have to take whatever free cash we have, transfer it as required by law into the Chapter 324 supplemental reserve account, and then unfortunately not be able to leave it there but use that for FY 2027 expenses?
No, of course not. We are not in an enviable position at all, and I have said that. And I don't know of a public official involved in this entire dynamic who's been more frank with you and with the public than I have. It has been a challenge, but we have been able to survive. And the strategies that we have employed over the last 3 years are certainly much preferable to a state takeover. And so we have done everything we could, and I have worked tirelessly. My staff and my team have worked tirelessly. The folks at OA have been incredible partners. The school finance staff, the superintendent. What you see in front of the cameras when the school committee is sharing acrimony with one another is not what happens behind the scenes. The staff, up to and including the superintendent and our team and our new mayor, work very, very closely together. And yeah, it's a challenge to balance the budget every year. And anyone that says anything else is not being truthful. However, we've been able to do it, and that's a credit to everyone. And I think if we're going to go out and ask the taxpayers to help support building a new high school, then what we all need to be doing, and this goes beyond this room, is we need to be working together and bringing positive energy. And I'm not suggesting you're not win at all, but I'm speaking more broadly to the larger audience. And we need to recognize how hard people have worked to solve these problems and how hard we need to continue to work to balance our budgets and to do things like build a new high school.
I do try to maintain a positive attitude, but in terms of finances, when you have very limited reserves, when you have to rely on borrowing, transferring money out of supplemental reserve accounts just to get through the fiscal year, it concerns me. And the other thing is, and I'm just going to leave you with this, and you know I shared this with the mayor. Week after week, I see employment positions crossing my email. If you don't know the level of state aid, if you don't know the Chapter 70 aid for the schools, because it's going to be affected by enrollment, I don't understand how we keep filling positions and not wait to at least find out where are we going to be? In what financial position will we be in for FY 2027? It's not my call. It is the mayor's call. And now you can turn around and say to me, Win, they're vacant, but they're funded. Yeah, okay, they're funded, but you don't know if we may need those funds. And we're never going to build back reserves unless we start limiting our expenditures. I don't see any manna from heaven coming down to the city of Brockton saying, here's $5 million to put away in a supplemental reserve account. I hope I live long enough to see us build those reserves back up because they are so critically important. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Clarkson and Mr. Gonzalez. I just have a few questions, and I'll be as quick as I can. If I could just make a request, I think. Thank you for all the documents that you provided and all this extensive information in terms of the other budget and where we are financially. I think it would be extremely helpful just to kind of keep us on track and to kind of know where we are in terms of documents being referenced to, perhaps assign some kind of document number to the documents that you present to us, just so that we can easily follow along what you're referencing at any point in the other conversation. I have a couple questions on the PowerPoint document that you presented, and I'm just going to kind of flip through real quick here. On page 2, status of FY26 budget, you mentioned that we're looking at the bottom of the other page, actually. We're looking at a water rate increase. And this is anticipated for FY 26? 27, I'm sorry.
FY 27, Commissioner Hill recently commissioned a rate study, and that's when we file for the rate increase, we will share that with you. And so trying to look at, on a long-term basis, what sort of revenue is necessary to have a financially healthy water enterprise moving forward. So we continue to balance the water enterprise, generally all of the enterprises, with retained earnings, sort of like balancing the general fund budget with free cash. It's not a preferred practice. I have publicly stated many times, I agree with the sentiments expressed by Councilor Farwell. It is not a best practice. It's like paying your mortgage with your credit card, right? But it has been necessary here in Brockton to balance those enterprise fund budgets with retained earnings because the rates that we charge aren't sufficient to support the operations. I know that's unpopular to say, and I know it's difficult for you to go to your constituents and ask for more money, but it's a simple math equation, right? If we don't have sufficient revenues in those enterprises to fund the operations, then the general fund's got to come up with the money. So Pat commissioned a study so that we could come objectively to you and look at, on a long-term basis, what is needed in that water enterprise to provide revenue to support the operations on a long-term basis. Now, there are several factors that could influence that, including if we do purchase the Aquaria plant and we're relieved of significant, that $9 million annual expense in the enterprise that we pay to Aquaria, then those dynamics could change significantly. But we at least thought it was important because Pat and I have both been saying for several years, and we've had conversations with you about the need to address the water rates so that we're creating long-term financial sustainability in that fund.
Okay. And we'll see this, whatever this increase is, we'll see this.
I anticipate we actually, the deadline for filing for your next meeting was today, and we really wanted to take the time to have a package, I think, that was comprehensive, so we held off. And so it'll probably be, I would say you only meet once in June, other than for the budget, just a finance committee once in June. So it will probably be either for your second FinCom in May or in June.
Okay. And while we're on water, I'm looking at the DSL letter. On that first page, the second bullet. So $8,739,692 certified and cash was transferred to a few different accounts to fund those accounts, and one being the trash enterprise fund for one 138,196. I'm assuming that is because there was a shortfall in that account, and that's why the transfer was made, correct?
That is correct, that the revenues collected from the refuse, the trash rates were not sufficient to cover the operations. And as we've said to you, we anticipate that deficit in that enterprise will grow should you not move forward with the rate increase. That deficit will grow to over $1 million this year. And then the general fund will have to cover that. And that's $1 million out of that same general fund that will have to come from somewhere.
Okay.
Likely public safety.
And that transfer was for FY '25, right?
Right.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go to page 3, back on your PowerPoint report. The school net spending. 7.2 mil in FY '24 and 7.5 in FY '25 was fully appropriated to the schools, right, for net school spending. Will 100% of these appropriations, 7.2 and 7.5, be available to the school department in subsequent years?
That money is currently available to the schools without any further action required from this body.
Okay, all right. And all of those funds are available to schools. All righty. I'm going to go to the next page. Yeah, the DOR tax rate letter. So for the health insurance trust fund, there's a projected 3.3 million for the end of this fiscal year. And I believe you mentioned a 7+% increase in insurance rates for FY '27?
Correct.
Okay, and that is, I'm taking into account the estimated 3.3 mil in surplus, correct?
Yes, I mean, there isn't necessarily a relationship but from one to the other in terms of how we calculate the rates. And so we strive to have at least 15% of annual claims in a reserve. And we also have to have, should we cease to provide health insurance, there's something called IBNR, incurred but not reported. So should the health insurance program end, we need to have enough money in reserves to carry out paying the claims. Say you went to the doctor today, the city of Brockton wouldn't actually pay that claim for probably 60 or 90 days. And so that's why we keep money in reserves to be able to pay those claims. So we strive to keep money in reserves, but set the rates based on the projections from Blue Cross and Harvard that are then reviewed by our consultant and then by the director of HR and me and ultimately approved by the mayor of what we think the costs for the health insurance program are going to be, and then build in the administrative costs for Blue Cross and Harvard. We have something called reinsurance. We spend about $1 million a year and have an insurance policy on our health insurance to guard against any high cost claims. And so when we stack all those things on top of one another, we then look at what we think the rates should be for the ensuing year and make a calculation. And so for this current year, as I said, it was 14.5%, and that was, I think, a smart and wise decision. We anticipate that that's 7.5%. We don't anticipate, that is 7.5% for next year, based on several factors, and not the least of which is the elimination of covering GLP-1s for elective use.
Okay, all right. What was the increase for last year for FY '25? I'm just curious.
So for this year, FY '26 was 14.5. The year prior to that, I believe, I'll check to make sure, but I believe it was 5%. Do you remember?
It might have been 6%.
5 or 6%, yeah.
Okay. 5 or 6 and 14 this, for FY '26.
14 for this year. And
Quite a difference, isn't it?
To be clear, 14.5% is not an anomaly. Self-funded municipal health insurance programs throughout the Commonwealth were right in that same area. Many of them were higher. The Group Insurance Commission, which provides health insurance to state employees, I believe was higher than the 14.5. So it was not, it was right in line with what we saw in public health insurance programs throughout the Commonwealth.
Okay, all right, thank you. Final question. I'm going back to page 2 of your presentation. A projected 10 million surplus. And I'm looking at the expenditure report, and I noted that there are several departments or several line items that is 100% or more in terms of their spending. What's the plan to remedy these departments or these line items that have exceeded 100% of their expenditures? Are we looking at supplemental appropriations? Are we looking at transfers in different places? And how does that relate to this projected 10 million that you're projecting?
Excellent question. So there's a couple of different ways we deal with it. Some of them can be dealt with through what's called a journal entry. That is, some of these, as you can imagine, with a $600 million budget, sometimes human error occurs and things just get booked in the wrong line. That happens. There were, like, for instance, I'll find it here, but in the elections office, there was an amount in overtime. Let me try to find it here. Elections. So we've already actually taken care of that. That's good. I hope that would be done by today. So that's a good example. There was an overage in the overtime amount in elections, but actually that money should have been booked towards what's called polls, or that's the money appropriated for poll workers. So the accounting office actually took that expense that showed up in overtime and was actually expenses for the poll workers during the recount. And so that's one way to do it. Another way is if there's an actual appropriation that's at or near its limit, we have to come to you and seek a transfer. And so today we filed 4 or 5 several transfers that you will see at your next Finance Committee meeting to remedy some of these budgets that are at or near 100%.
Okay, all right. All right. And final question for Mr. Gonzalez in terms of kind of tracking and monitoring these departments or these budget items that are close or near that 100% mark. What's the process in place now to kind of monitor that, raise the red flag, say to these departments, these leaders, you're near to a 100%, and what adjustments can be made to avoid exceeding that?
Usually what happens, so I had a email earlier from someone from public property, and they said that, so we have things in place where you can't, they're very limited ways where you can actually go over certain thresholds, statutory categories and such. Usually it's us, where we can push something or button or whatever, where we say we can, expend over a certain limit. we only do that if we know that there is a council order to replenish that line item. Usually what happens is that if someone in, just pick any department would say, look, we're close to, or we don't have enough money in our line item, can we overspend this line item? I would say no. You would have to contact the finance office to make sure that there is an appropriate transfer to be made, or if there is a correction to be made, example, the overtime and the polls for elections, that we make a journal entry to satisfy that. So there are certain mechanisms in place where, people are made aware where they're close or at a certain thing, and, they would have to go to, council, or they would have to get a hold of my office to make said correction on the general ledger. Usually, the finance office is pretty good with letting people know when they're very close on certain statutory categories. We also look at that on our end as well, and we do that for grants and capital projects to really make sure that we're not, getting hit with these deficits as we have in the past.
Thank you. Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor, is there a motion?
Motion to recommend favorable.
Second.
Made and seconded to recommend this matter favorably. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. On Saturday, the Plymouth County Commission on the Status of Women held a morning meeting at Bridgewater State University. The commission's purpose is to provide permanent, effective voice for the advancement of women and girls in Plymouth County. I attended the meeting with women from all over Plymouth County. I learned of pending bills at the State House that have been proposed by South Shore women to benefit women, including to compensate family members serving as caregivers. Right now, the commission's 9-member body has openings for new members. Go to its website, plymouthcountywomen.org, to learn more. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other moments? Seeing none, I declare this meeting adjourned.